When turn them on?
You know,
All right, you should be good to go, Bill.
The opposite of my dad is like. So.
Yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah.
All right, I will call this meeting to order. The time is 4:01. It's May 6th. Commissioners Sabine, Hadler, McCurdy, McGann, Martinez, McCandless, and Winfield are present with our county attorney, administrator, and our clerk auditor present. So with that, will stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will open our 4 o'clock citizens to be heard, and I'm going to invite Lee Shenton up. I hope I didn't butcher your name, sir.
Oh, you got it right.
We'll let you
Can't
start.
tell you how many times in my life I've been called Shelton though.
Okay, well, I didn't put an L in it.
Thank you very much, commissioners. I'm Lee Shelton, citizen of Grant County and the president of the local chapter of Utah Friends of Paleontology. For 4 years now, because of the pandemic, we've been administering a citizens donation fund that Mary again created 4 years ago to help support establishment of the state park and to encourage the state legislature to approve one before, they had approved it. I'm here to tell you how the $27,000 worth of donations from 81 citizens and a dozen businesses, all matched by Grand County Travel Bureau, were used to help establish the park. The park is the customer, so their concurrence was required and still required to disperse any of that fund. We want to make sure it's something they want. We recommended, because of our connections in the paleontology world, we recommended and park management concurred that we spend a little more than half of that on a replicate skeleton of Utah raptor. And I think some of you have that handout. Look at that, you can see if the thing was live standing next to us, would have had no problem taking my head off, Okay. And the rest of it, most of the rest, we recommended be spent to commission a video describing the discovery and the significance of Utah raptor. Skeleton ended up costing us a little over 29 grand, and it was installed on April 12th. And just for a little chuckle, it immediately started threatening visitors because even though the visitor center wasn't open, we had campers ogling through the window while I was there. The video will be ready in early July and will cost a little over $18,000. 10 to 12 minute video will include a comprehensive review of park geology and history, not only paleontology, including the Moab Citizens Incarceration Center. The remaining $6,400 of the fund will be used for additional interpretive items such as signage and window and wall art for the visitor center. State Parks is providing a sign recognizing all of the donors. And the grand opening is still planned for May 23rd to accommodate Governor Cox. So that's my comments, questions.
Mary, go ahead.
I just want to personally thank Lee because it was my idea, but it was Lee that carried it out. The paleontology group was a 501c3, so they were the ones that were able to take the donations. So they handled that, and then they have been handling all the organization and getting things put together. So, they really were the ones that took the idea and made it become a reality. So I really thank Lee and the paleontologist group for
It's been a pleasure.
willing to do this.
Despite of the pandemic, which delayed lead times and raised costs and caused who knows how many problems. They're still getting it done May 23rd. All right. Thank you, commissioners.
Lee, thank you for your time. You're welcome. All right, if we've got any other citizens that would like to come up and speak, Mr. Topper,
Thanks, Bill.
you're quite welcome.
Thank you for having me. My name is Colin Topper. I was the chair of Grant County Trail Mix from 2021 until 2024. Here today to voice my support for the opening of some of Grant County's non-motorized trails to e-bikes, but my opposition to the blanket opening of all Grant County non-motorized trails. You've already, I'm sure, received a lot of emails, probably from both sides, people with concerns and people also support. And I first want to say that, all of these comments come from a place of a great and deep appreciation of our trails and how much they do for us, both personally and economically. And so I hope that, as we are just beginning this process, that's the overriding theme that we keep revisiting as we're making decisions based on this. And so I just want to say that, by county decree, Grant County Trail Mix is officially the non-motorized advisory committee to the commission. Also, by that same decree, we're the representative committee of all the non-motorized recreational user groups. And so last fall, when Grant County Trail Mix submitted its letter advising this commission or the commission during the original scoping period of the BLM, that didn't come from a place of traditional mountain bikers, hating on this new technology and e-bikers. It came from equestrians who were concerned that as they were riding their giant animals, their giant chickens on these trails, that bikes could now, this new technology would allow bikes to come up with the same level of noise, but at higher speeds to them. This came from hikers who were concerned as they were sharing the trails and hiking uphill. They no longer just had to be concerned at bikes coming down at a high rate of speed to them, but also bikes that could now travel uphill at higher rates of speed. This came from trail runners who were concerned of the trail damage that could potentially come from just an increase of use or a new use. So all that being said, I think that we have an opportunity to truly have the best of both worlds. With a partial opening, with offering some of our non-motorized existing trails to e-bikes, we can say to the world, hey, not only do we have these existing places to ride, not only are we developing multiple new areas to ride e-bikes, but we're also opening some of our existing non-motorized trails, places that were otherwise off limits to this new technology. Thanks, Stephen. On the flip side of that, this would also give time, because this is such a new time and there hasn't been definitive studies, and I think somebody else is going to talk about that. It'll give time for our world-class trail crew to monitor these impacts, to monitor the user conflicts, to adapt to this new use. This is a really important, and then if there needs to be work done to find the financial, to secure the funding to do this work. So it sounds like I'm out of time. So, again, I just want to voice my support. I am supportive of opening some of our non-motorized trails to e-bikes, but I'm absolutely opposed to just the blanket opening of all of our trails to e-bikes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ma'am, if you want to come, well, you ladies first.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to comment. My name is Samantha Derbyshire. I am the current vice chair of Grant County Trail Mix, and I am also the owner of Whole Enchilada Shuttle Company. I am here to ask that you vote against the new letter regarding e-bikes for a number of reasons. The county advisory boards put much time and careful consideration when presenting its recommendations to the commission. The county put together a thoughtful and balanced recommendation regarding the introduction of e-bikes on existing BLM trails. As you know, it was approved unanimously in November and submitted to the BLM. To say in this new letter that you took into consideration the input of the advisory committees is a lie. We were all blindsided by this new letter, and none of the advisory committees recommended a free-for-all. As a business owner in the mountain biking industry here in town, I understand the importance of keeping up with changing trends. I am for the introduction of Class 1 e-bikes in the Moab area. I find it necessary to continue bringing in riders to the area. And yet I do not want to see the integrity of our trails diminish because their introduction was not done with care. To declare open season on e-bikes has the potential to lead to some detrimental results if not done with care. It would be most detrimental if they were introduced without care and the BLM revoked all e-bike privileges, ruining it for all. Also, blanket opening could bring about other classes of e-bikes, Class 2, Class 3. We've already had an issue with Surons here in town on the bike paths, electric motorbikes. And so if we're having issues in town, I can only imagine what they're gonna be like out on the trails. One major benefit of e-bikes is the enhancement of accessibility and inclusivity. Moab has areas that are already e-bike friendly and more trails are being built this fall. BLM already has a program in place to allow those with accessibility issues to obtain permission for the use of e-bikes. This allows for those with the most need to utilize e-bikes as they are incrementally introduced to trail areas and monitored for success. I have to disagree with the claim that e-bikes have minimal environmental impacts. In 2016, IMBA, International Mountain Bike Association, did a study and did come to that conclusion. However, that study was done in Oregon and our trails are vastly different. The Federal Highways Administration published a study in November 22, The Future of E-Bikes on Public Lands. And they clearly state that more research is needed to understand the impacts of e-bikes on trails, to whether e-bikes have different impacts on cultural and historical resources, to understand the safety differences, examine if and how e-bikes change visitor use patterns, determine if trail design standards need to be modified, and determine how land management agencies coordinate management. The introduction of e-bikes will require the shuttle companies to change their day-to-day operations. It'll require additional investments in changing the way we carry our bikes due to the increased weight of e-bikes. We will not be able to load e-bikes on the roofs, our vans, and will likely require us to build trailers specifically for transportation. We already have long-time returning riders to Moab complaining about the overwhelming amount of motorized recreation in Moab. So much so, some have stated they're going elsewhere next time. So, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Merrick, former GM of Escape Adventures, new owner of Coyote Shuttle. I just kind of wanted to go over what I've seen from 20 years in the industry. Previously and through last year, guiding with Escape Adventures all over Western United States, I watched the communities that allowed e-bikes in thrive and their tourism numbers go up. Right now, I feel like we're kind of keeping away only the people who do multiple phone calls a week for cancellations, because I'll have groups from 2 to 8 St. George instead, because it works better for their group.
Nobody else? All right, then I will close the 4 o'clock citizens to be heard, and we will invite up Mr. Hatfield. Many of us looking forward to this. Okay.
Let me jump on and share.
Thank you, folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me come. You should have this presentation in your packets. I shared it last week. And so if you have any questions or I go too fast or slow down. But anyhow, let me introduce myself. I'm Brent Hatfield. I'm with UDOT, project manager for the Colorado River Trail Gap project. This project is on Highway 128. those who are not familiar with it, that everybody in this room is more familiar than I am with it. And so, this project is in the design process and we are moving forward, and I want to give you an update of that, where we're gonna go. Okay. So this project is funded, and it connects to the existing trail on Highway 128 about 2.3. 2.3 basically, which is 0.7 miles. So there's a gap there. The existing trail does not connect. The original design, if you guys followed it really well, was originally funded to have some structure work, which is like it is now, which they have walls and structures. As we've looked at it closer, we are only looking at doing retaining walls. So there'll be those rock walls. I'll show you pictures of the existing one. It'll be really close to that. Horrocks Engineering is the designer. They're the ones that designed the previous projects for Grant County that you guys ended up working on. So right now we have a budget of 12.5 million. 10 million of that is from the UTN project, which is Utah Trails Network. That's the new stuff that the governor, funding the governor put together in 2023. They had about $45 million yearly for trails throughout Utah. And then there's 2.5 million of Bureau of Recreation. Now that funding, I found out yesterday, was going to go through the BLM, but we got permission to put it directly into our go right to UDOT, and they'll get it into a pot, so it'll be $12.5. So that's the beginning, milepost 2.3, and there's the end. 3.0, you can see right now, when we walked it, people run, people bike, and it was during the off season for you guys. I'm assuming in summertime there's a ton of bikes.
I think 45,000 people come down the whole enchilada every year, and they have to navigate that gap.
Yeah, it is shoulder. Yeah, it is. It'll be a good thing. It'll help the safety on this for that and stuff. So for that group. So hopefully you can see that. But there is the typical that we're looking at with the wall. So we'll have from the center line of the road, we'll have 11 to 12 feet. We've been debating on what that is. The point where the actual retaining wall will be is not going to change. What we're trying to do is find that comfort zone for the trail and traffic. And right now we're gonna put a curb in to separate them, not guardrail at the current time. We've found that the crashes, this is kind of on a long sweeping curb towards the mountain, not towards the river. And we're gonna put a curb in because of the accidents are all that. And we just felt like it would open it up better. It would make it feel still separated, but still take care of that. So you guys have some of that already on the corridor. You kind of have like three different things. You have separation of between the road and the trail, a big separation. You have this curb and you have guardrails. So we're going to go mainly with the curb. It also allows us to do some other. That's a typical section we're looking at doing it. The trail will be, right now we want them to be about 12 feet wide, and then there's some buffer zones. So mainly we're going to be that wide. See that 12 foot in there with the 1 foot buffer zone. So there's a picture of when they were building the other one. One of the different things that will happen, you see that, right, is there has to be a rub rail along this top. So it will affect a little bit of visual stuff compared to this one. So it'll be similar to this railing. In fact, we're trying to match it, but it'll have to have a rub rail because of the standards that go along with that. So still open to be visually pleasing, but because of the handlebar not wanting it to grab it, you have to have a rub rail. Here's a little bit close up. One of the things, we do have some pipes that will come through some culverts that will come through the wall. They'll look like this and then take care of some of those stuff. But you can see that there'll be that similar type mesh, that wall that you have on your existing trail. So we rest on that. What it won't have is down here, you can see that structure. It will not have those. This point at the bottom of the wall, we are setting 1 foot above the ordinary high water mark for the Colorado River to help with making sure that it can last for a long time. So schedule wise, we should be complete with the design in 2026 to February. That is, it could be sped up depending on a few things. We're looking at advertising in March. These are long dates. Because of the structure, we are looking at possibly revising that a little bit. We have what we call our plan specs and estimate, environmental phase in November of this year, 2025. At that point, we'll find out if we could advertise in December, or early January. Construction is going to be a challenge. We are working on this one. There are some, so the BLM did a environmental assessment of this corridor for us specifically to get that done. And there are some restrictions due to different types of things, either birds or some fish in the river. And they will not allow us to work between February or basically from March through August. So we are going to work with them to find out if there's monitoring we can do, if we can start before that. But right now, our plan is not to start until August 2026 because of those restrictions, unless we figure out how to do something different. So you'll be a winter project, which will probably be better for road, because with the walls, we do have to cut into the road and tie these walls back with what they call straps. So we will be working on a Grand County agreement. You guys are familiar with these. Right now, they're trying to do what they call a boilerplate for all our trails throughout the state for every single municipality that we work with. And that agreement is at the AG's office being reviewed. I asked if I could get a copy of it to at least go over it. But it'll be similar to what you guys are doing on the other trail, which is generally take over maintenance that project of the project that we've done. That will hopefully we have to have it before we could advertise it. So I hope we have it probably the next 3 or 4 months. They promised me a year ago it'd be done, but 3 to 4 months I'm hoping. So I'll probably be back and it's ready to go. Present it to you or at least get it to you guys. So any questions, there's my contact information. If you do have any questions, you call me, you can email me, try to get back to you. Be a great project.
So we're looking at 2 years out before it's complete, if everything goes according to the schedule.
Yeah, yeah, 2025, unless we have our review meeting, 60% review meeting coming up in June. At that point, if we feel like we can speed it up and move everything forward, but still it come down to, we don't really want to have them start, cannot work around those restrictions. We don't want them to have to start, sit for 6 months and then start again. And so we are working with our environmental group and the BLM to figure out, okay, is this a hard no, or because a lot of times we can monitor if there's nesting birds, we can go in with it and either start before they start nesting or do something else. So we're trying to get that answered so we can decide what we want to do. If we want to speed up the design or keep that on.
And then the design, as far as that goes, it looks like you're not gonna have any of it. It's gonna be cantilevered out over the river, like in other parts of the trail where it's like more of a bridge. It'll be attached to the road with that curb.
So that structure is when I say that structure, originally we had about 700 feet of structure that we were going to do. When we started looking at it and looking at our survey point, we felt like, we determined that we could, there was going to be some tight areas which will neck down. Right now, the trail is 10 foot wide on that structure. And it's still, so we're coming in with 10 foot, we're trying to be basically 14 of pavement. And we're gonna say, okay, can we neck down to that 10 foot in some locations where it's tight and still keep that wall where it is? Because there's a fine line between how tall the wall is. Because the taller we make the wall, the further we have to go back into the road. And it becomes more challenging. So we want to make the wall a decent spot where we don't have to do that. Try to save some funding for finances.
And what did you call that? A rub rail? Is that right?
Yeah, so it'll just be piece metal.
Oh, okay.
So-
And is that, and that's the same as it's currently, right?
No.
No, it's not. Okay, it's different.
That's what I'm saying. The only difference, the real difference you're gonna see between what you have now and that is there'll be a rub rail on. Well, it's right here. So right about.
Okay.
Handlebar height.
Yeah, right.
Handlebar height, there'll be a rub rail because we don't want them to get caught in there and crash.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else? Brent, we really appreciate you coming down. I know I sit on one of those boards, but I think we acquired that $10.5 million grant for this, so. I'm glad that we can maybe get that dumped straight to you rather than being it go through multiple channels.
I think it's great. Yeah, we had a meeting. Found out from our program manager that sounds like it's gonna happen. So.
Good. We appreciate the update and look forward to that contract. Really, that's the next step, right? We want to see that so that we can get this moving forward, get
Yeah.
it signed and move it forward.
Yeah, we have about, like I said, 6 to 7 months.
Cool. All right. We appreciate your coming down here for that. Hey, we will move into department reports, and it looks like we've got Sonora here.
There, folks, how are we all doing today?
Good.
Excellent, good to see you all. All right, and as promised per the agenda, we'll make sure to keep this 15 minutes or less. We're just going to go over our overview of currently what our primary projects are, as well as give a brief intro into what we're looking forward to in the future. Good, go to. So, for our personnel services updates, first item that we have essentially kind of these 3 categories that I wanted to touch on, which are our hiring, leadership training, and the employee handbook revision, which is really our big topic of this year. So for our hiring, this is an overview, and I'm gonna use this a little bit, see if it's gonna cooperate with us, but for hiring, some of the items that we've really been focusing on this year is making sure that we are providing consistency and streamlining as much as possible recruitment, screening, and interview processes. What that looks like is being able to provide tools to hiring managers, such as having interview templates, having sample questions, being able to provide them guidance on who would be helpful to have on hiring committees, how many folks should be involved, and helping with some of that screening process prior to them inviting candidates to interviews. The next is being able to increase our applicant pools. That's something that particularly as we're going into this year, we've of course been strategizing a little differently and utilizing some consulting firms such as ADK Consulting for our airport director position. They assisted us with screening our candidates for that position. And then also now looking at a contract with Slave and Management Consultants for our county engineer and planning and zoning director positions. So folks that are really field experts who are able to assist us in being able to increase our applicant pools outside of our little spot in Moab, being able to identify candidates who have a really solid understanding of what a move to Moab would look like if they're really interested in considering employment with us. Time to hire is a very, very common measurement of recruitment health in organizations. So time to hire is what is the lapse between an individual leaving a position and hiring and onboarding a new employee, as well as if we open a brand new position, how long does it take us to recruit that? So that's another measurement that we've been looking at, and we'll continue to strategize how can we reduce that time to fill or time to hire. The last item that's really important that we've talked about a lot in our office is retention of our employees. Retaining an employee is the most valuable really strategy that you can have in the work that we do in personnel services. And so what that looks like is, of course, always being able to carry on these open dialogues with our staff of what do you need and what do you want to see as we move forward. Being able to continually evaluate how do we compare to other organizations when it comes to the benefits that we're offering, when it comes to the compensation that we're offering, but also when it comes to the type of organization we're offering to them in terms of our culture and just the day-to-day support and interactions that they have with us at the county. Trends-wise, nationally, folks aren't prioritizing compensation as their number one thing they look for in an employer. They're really looking at what type of flexibility am I able to have? Do I want to show up to work every day? Am I set up for success to do a good job? Can I see myself moving up here and continuing to develop as a professional? Do I have a good work-life balance? An additional item on retention is, as we, again, pursue some different avenues, such as using a recruitment firm, they're responsible for the recruitment portion. We're responsible for the retention portion. And so, again, continuing to look at that and incorporate that into some of our more institutional resources, such as our employee handbook, is really important. And when we get to that, we'll touch on it a little bit more, but we'll be able to kind of actually talk through and see what some of those retention efforts could really look like. For our leadership training, this is a really big item that's very important to us, and was something that Personnel Services was talking about long before I came on board. But nobody really trains you how to be a leader, right? You sort of get put into these positions and then you have to figure it out. And so whether that be with more logistical items such as knowing our policies and understanding what do I do if my employee gets into an accident, what is my reporting requirement and obligation, down to if I have two employees that are having a difficult time working together productively, how do I even go about starting to solve that problem? So providing these little short snippet leadership trainings during our leadership and monthly leadership meetings is something that we're moving towards in the future. Do we have any questions on those items so far? Okay, great. And then our big fun ticket of 2025 is our employee handbook revision. So the Grand County Employee Handbook has not been revised since 2014, meaning it's outdated in quite a few ways. From the language it uses, such as we still refer to the commission as the council in that handbook, to different department head positions having different titles, such as my title being Human Resources Director. So just updating the verbiage that we use, as well as ensuring that we are in compliance with state code and incorporating the many resolutions we've passed since 2014, which currently are not included in the handbook and can cause a lot of confusion for employees who are trying to find the most accurate and updated version of a policy. Another really huge way that we are able to make a very intentional effort in how we want to drive our organization forward and how we support employees is through policy. And so as we look to revising the handbook, we know that there will be some clarifications to policies, some additions to certain gaps that we have in our policies, as well as determining what else can we do for our staff, maybe not included right now. And so currently we've been in sort of that informal information gathering stage of just getting feedback from staff as we're able to, but we will start working through a more formalized process of getting feedback on what needs to be changed in our handbook, whether it just be clarifying or perhaps being able to modify a policy to be more employee friendly. And then that process will, of course, need to involve you all. So we're excited to get to continue to involve you all in that conversation along the way. Do we have any questions on that before we move forward? Okay, great. Laura, am I missing anything? Great. And then for our future goals, and these are, of course, sometimes, as we all know, we have to reprioritize based on need and circumstances that we don't foresee. But for 2026, the big items we've been talking about are looking towards implementing a digital timekeeping system. Currently, our timekeeping system can be difficult both for the employees as well as the supervisors. It's very manual right now. And so timesheet templates are constantly getting broken. Edits are being made that are a fat finger we didn't mean to make. And so we are looking towards moving it to a digital timekeeping system on our software that we use as well for payroll, Cassell, so that we are able to streamline that and make timesheet Monday less of a torturous day for folks. And be able to continue again expediting and getting payroll out on time. Our risk management efforts, we really want to improve. Currently, risk management does reside within personnel services, and primarily what that looks like right now is we lead out a safety accident review committee where we evaluate whether it be any employee injuries, accidents, or near miss incidents, so that we can look at what factors went into this and how can we move towards reducing, mitigating, preventing these incidents in the future. We do want to expand that work. We want to more proactively be working with department heads and seeing what type of training, what type of assessments do we need to be doing for your, whether it be facility or just amongst your staff and their education, so that we can prevent any type of accidents, injuries, et cetera. And we also want to be looking at, say, our facility safety of, do we have evacuation plans? Do we have staff who are educated on where panic buttons are and what happens if they need any type of support? If they see a fire, what do you do? So those are also some items that we really want to work on improving and focusing in on in the future. And then the last item is we know that at some point, just based on the number of folks that we have on payroll, currently we have 253 employees actively on payroll. And that's including our full-time, part-time, seasonal, as needed. But in HRIS, a human resources information system, at some point, software, is at some point something that likely will greatly benefit the county, just in terms of, again, being able to automate what we do in the personnel services department, whether it be being able to onboard staff, not by doing all of their paperwork via pen and paper, whether it be having a recruitment portion to an HRIS system, so that we are able to send out mass emails to prospective candidates and update them, as opposed to having to individually email candidates, which can sometimes get lost in the shuffle of just, the day-to-day chaos. And again, reprioritization of what our staff on site need. And just be able to do personnel file tracking, so that if, say, we had a prior employee who wants to come back, if we don't have historical knowledge within our department of what that employee's experience and whether they, what their exit was, we have nothing to work off of in terms of whether they would be a really good employee to take back on. So again, just really looking to continue to increase our efforts so that we can increase our productivity. That's what we got for you.
Exciting stuff.
Oh yes, I just dream of beautiful, beautiful time cards. It's like counting sheep in my head. Do we have any questions, or are you all interested in anything else that we have just day to day going on right now?
How many openings do we have right now currently?
That's a great question. Do you know off the top of your head? We have several positions that essentially remain rolling on our employment opportunities page, those being our trails positions and our sheriff's office positions. Less than 10.
I want to say it's close to 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds very good.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Trish.
This is something I actually talked to Stephen about a while ago, and I don't know if it's something more for the handbook or just our own policies, but this idea when you talked about consistency within interview committees, et cetera, and so on, like one of the things we talked about is basically making sure to remove commissioners from those committees other than like county admin, like it would be appropriate for that. But other than that, we think that, anyway, so just thoughts floating around. And I don't know if that would really be more on your end or on Stephen's end, but it's something to, I think, for us to think about. The picture, just to kind of remove those biases and just the political winds that shift. And
It's something we certainly could consider and maybe put to a vote, but there's probably others here that have a differing opinion.
I had a different question. Perhaps on your automation of the sign-ins, is there a way to make that connected with the logins? When everybody enters in their password into the network system, in what way are we looking to automate the time cards? I'm just wondering about that.
Do you want to? Yeah, so Cassell has an online time card system that we can utilize, which would create a new login information for each employee. I don't think that there's a way to automate it with
Logins.
our logins, like in our email accounts or onto systems, but so it's really just setting all of our pay codes up within that system, and then also setting all of our employee credentials up in that system.
And one thing the commissioners have never probably seen a time card. And so how it works right now is the individual employees, they mark their time in an Excel sheet, mark it up, and then forward it over to their supervisor. And their supervisor has to go, oh, wait, you took 3 hours off for the dentist appointment, so go back and add that. And it's kind of old fashioned, and then we review it, then we sign off on it, and then we send it to HR, and then it's processed and paid. And so that has to happen every 2 weeks. So that's the world in which we're living in. That's one thing the commissioners probably have never seen.
Considerable oversight for department heads is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, we have to go through and verify everything. And then there's even manual for example, if they're gonna go out of town, they need to pre-fill out their time cards. And so some of that, it would be an awesome, might not be exciting for the commissioners, but I think department heads would be pretty giddy about it. Not having to, fine tooth comb, look over every single one of those items. That's neat.
I got a question real quick.
Sure.
You're talking about the safety committee. So who's involved in that safety committee?
Yeah, so for the Safety Accident Review Committee, it's our department. We have roads representatives, we have comm admin, we have OSTA, we have the airport. Yeah, airport is involved. This is part of that. Attorney's office. And maintenance.
And then the reports, I'm sure that they have, what do they have, quarterly reports or yearly reports for accident reports?
So we actually have those meetings monthly.
You have those meetings monthly. Okay, so this is a monthly thing that happens.
Yes.
And then on that, what type of advice are you guys like providing them as far as like proactive management for, I don't know, sprains, strains, accidents? What's on the list right now coming up?
That's a great question. And so there are kind of two parts to that. So one part in terms of preventive training that we offer. So within the Safety Accident Review Committee, that's our overall safety program. We work with Utah Trust for that. And we do have monthly safety trainings, which are available to employees, and they get prizes for participation, et cetera. And so those are based off of employee feedback of what types of trainings would they like to see. We do also have a training platform, Traliant. That being said, it doesn't cover everything. So if a certain department states, I need, some additional support, for instance, being able to train my team on backing up trailers, then we go ahead and search and identify resources that would be beneficial, and then try to help strategize of would it be helpful to have an in-person training where you give employees the opportunity to practice backing up with somebody who's a supervisor or really skilled at it, so that you can walk them through it. And then we also utilize, sometimes we have to learn our lessons the hard way, if you will. But again, even if it's that, we do have, say, one backup incident that happens where there's a collision, and that department determines that having extended mirrors on their trucks helps to mitigate that risk, then we will share that information with other departments that are driving those larger sized vehicles, so that they have that feedback on why don't we look at doing this, so that you can prevent these types of accidents within your department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then a bit of information as well. The county also receives, when we ever have incidents, there'll be updated information about what kind of accident occurred. And then we also get additional learning from that, and we'll get emails that are circulated in my office and Ms. Hoffman, of course, and then we'll provide additional information. And sometimes these things don't happen for a long time. And then sometimes we'll have like 5 of them or a slew of them. And so that's one of the great things about that team. And then the communication is we'll find some of the trends. And then the trust also publishes and pushes out, I don't know if it's a monthly or quarterly email to all the employees about, they sell it as fun and somewhat fun, but book clubs that you can read, and then management skills and stress and trainings, and they push those out pretty regularly. And in my office, I encourage them to take advantage of that training, and I believe some of them have as well.
Great. Did those reports, sorry,
Go ahead.
just to follow up on that just real quick, did those reports ever end up linked to the commission? in either one of your commission reports or into, just a quick email blast out like, hey, we had, these were the incidents that did occur, this last month.
Yeah, that's a great question. So previously we haven't issued that information to the commission. However, there is an expectation through the program that we participate within the trust that we will educate the county at large. And so we can make sure that the commission is included on
That'd
this.
be great. Thanks.
Mike, go ahead.
Not here to call fault. Number 3, the employee handbook being out since 2014. It sparsely has come up over several meetings. I see that being a risk assessment should be looking at that. The employment handbook has been coming up for a while, and I can't see your hair catching on fire every time we bring that up. It's a big risk. So.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I agree. And part of that revision is that we do intend on outlining it, what the process will be for ensuring that there are routine updates to it, whether that be that once annually the handbook is revised and any resolutions that were passed within that last year are incorporated, or a different strategy.
And I really call that out. Thank you for seeing it and working on it. At 238 employees. At 253, we're the county's biggest employer. I mean, there's anyone as big as that, so.
Based on the Department of Workforce Services, our, Grand County based employers were the 3rd largest behind Moab Regional Hospital and District.
Yeah, I mean, that's got a lot of employees in this valley.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're really, really lucky. We've got an amazing, very, very large, diverse team.
All right, I believe Mark would like to weigh in.
I know we've got a lot going on. If you give a very brief update on where we are with the airport director and planning and zoning and the county engineer.
Absolutely. So first, starting with the airport director, using ADK consultants, they were incredibly beneficial to work with. And we identified a top 4 for our candidates. All of them have been extended interviews, and currently we are just in the process of getting them scheduled, ideally for the end of this week. The 4 of them that I communicated with responded very promptly and all showed great interest. And so I'm very excited about us having both really strong candidates as well as very motivated and interested candidates for that position. And then for the planning and zoning director and county engineer positions, again, we're moving forward with Slavin Management Consultants to draft a contract. And so we have been going back and forth with them. They did receive, they sent over information for their contract guidelines today. We'll be working with the county attorney's office to draft that contract, and then you all will ideally be seeing that no later than the next commission meeting. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no others, we will move on. Thank you very much, ladies. We appreciate it. Don't have anything under agency reports, do we? All right, so we can move on to commission disclosures. Mike?
My wife continues to work for the sheriff's department.
Glad to see she's employed. Mary?
We'll be talking about the trails, and my son Brendan, again, works for at.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we can move on to our reports. Trish, you want to start us off?
I will try to go extremely fast. So on the 21st and the 29th, I had a fair board. They are just working away. We got a new member, which is Rachel Wooten. One of those lucky, we picked her up from the BLM and she's amazing. Lots of activity going on, pulling things together. I went on the 23rd, I went to Raptor kind of, I don't know what you call that, soft opening to look at the Moab Citizen Isolation Center and the CCC camp. It was really amazing. There were descendants of both of those camps, and so a really emotional, amazing time out there. On the 24th, I went to the Canyon Country Partnership in Orangeville. I'll try to go very fast, and I tried to pick things that were important. The National Park Service said that they are opening up self-guided fiery furnace. Carbon County, it was interesting, they really have, their overall objective is to engage industrial partners, and they had produced a master plan. Sitla, lots of interest in data centers for Sitla lands. And then they talked about the Klondike Bluffs proposal for residential development. The BLM in Monticello, they've lost a lot of folks. They usually have 39, they're down to 24. They also wanted to state that they are now mandated by the feds to do emergency permitting. So there's 14 days within any permit to do an environmental assessment. So they are mandated to move faster with less staff. UDOT, we already talked about that. BLM Price, again, they are down staff. One of the things that stands out for us is the River Rangers on Deso. They usually have 6, they're down to 2. CNHA sales are quite strong, which is great. Arches, they were only down 1%. iSky and Needles are actually up. The Moab Information Center is also up, but they also have extended hours. One of the cool things they did recently is bought tiny homes for the Forest Service in Monticello for their staff. And they are currently helping Arches cover desks, because again, Fed mandates say that there will be no reduced services, even though with reduced staffing. So the CNHA staff is picking that up. BLM Moab, they're fast tracking a permit out at Lisbon Valley. And they wanted to state that American Potash is now doing quite a bit of lithium exploration in Grand County. Mac McDonald from San Juan County talked about, and this was also in the paper, the Westwater Project, which is bringing water to much needed tribal lands outside of Blanding. And then they're also talking about putting warning sign at Wilson Arch for pedestrians, which is great. On the 28th, I had a joint planning and county commission meeting. We were all there, so I don't know how much we need to go at it. Talk about it. We're just working on the revision of the HDHO. I just want to reiterate that we have very limited staff and capacity, and they're doing the best that they can in planning and zoning. So I hope all of us have empathy and understanding for that. On the 30th, I went with Brian to the Dolores Travel Management Plan Cooperators meeting. It was, I think, a very productive meeting. Kind of the overall thing I got is there's a lot of spinning around when we're talking about road closures, RS 2477. This was part of the settlement of the West in 1866, and basically stating that, any roads at that time should remain open if they have been continuously used for the last 2 years prior to FLIPMA, which was, I believe, 1976. So that's, that was a big thing that was brought up again and again by PLIPCO. For myself, and I think we have a really nice kind of group of folks that have different views. For me, I'm all about wildlife. It's really clear, probably. So when they talk about things like winter range for deer and elk, I'm like, well, so, but it seems really productive. I think the staff at the BLM is very professional. I think PLIPCO is very professional. And so really, really a great working group. And then lastly, I want to just thank all the first responders that responded to the Perriott the other night. They lost one of the homes in their complex, and I know that they were very, very thankful to firefighters, to Grand County Sheriff, to EMS for being there quickly and making sure that nobody was harmed in that fire, but they did lose a home. And so hopefully the Perriott family knows that we're all here. We would do whatever we can for them. It was really devastating. So.
John, please. Thank you. Let's see, I missed the last commission meeting. I was out at spring break, Wilderness Escalante trip with the family. It's like I've been here for a really long time, 3-week period also. April 21, I attended Arches reservation discussion along with Bill and Superintendent of Arches with some text from Utah Tech along with PLIPCO as well. I think Kendall Wells put that one together where they talked about utilizing technology in the parks through Utah Tech to help different gather different metrics in the park. Mostly counting, being able to like count in real time how many cars and like are in certain parking lots, who's coming in the front gate and potentially other gates as well. It was actually a really interesting conversation about the technology. They've implemented some of this technology in some of the other parks in the southwestern part of the state, as well as a couple of the state parks. Like I said, Superintendent Lena Pace was there and was interested and receptive to the ideas put forth in that meeting. And if Bill remembers anything else, yeah, I'll defer to you when you. On the 22nd, again with Bill and Brian, had a meeting with, it was an introductory meeting with Madden, who is going to be our new contractor for our advertising. It was really just kind of a meet the team kind of meeting, and we also talked about the contract, and then that kickstarted the back and forth on the contract with Stephen and others, and the results of that we're going to vote on later today. But it seems like they have an engaged team. I look forward to working with them. I think it's going to be a good opportunity. Also on April 22nd, I met with Councilman Topper, and I had a meeting with the Moab City Police Chief and his assistant. And we talked, it's regarding the problem of we've had a issue, a lot of you have probably been aware of it on the parkway in town and on sidewalks. We've had incidents of conflict between users of these kind of light e-motos or supercharged unclassified e-bikes with pedestrians and other users on the path. Most of them are probably middle-aged high school age kids. There's actually one of them is an elementary school kid who's been riding his bike to school and kind of being little terrors. that was the term the police chief used. But it has been a big problem. I've gotten complaints about it. I ride my daughter to school every day, and I've gotten buzzed by kids doing probably 30 miles an hour on the parkway, and so have others. So we decided to be proactive. The police chief was very attentive, and they have now gotten a officer on e-bike on the parkway. I think they've made at least 6 stops so far, and not confiscated bikes, but taking the opportunity to educate the people and let them know what is acceptable, what's allowed on the parkways, what speeds are allowed, and also they're not actually allowed to, like, a 13-year-old kid's not allowed to ride a 200-watt e-moto in town without a helmet, without parental supervision. That's like not even close to legal. So educating kids and parents on this kind of thing. And apparently when I followed up with Councilman Copper earlier, he said that Chief Bell had been to a conference in St. George, and apparently Moab was absolutely not unique in this issue at all, and that we're having issues like this all over the state. Again, new technology, people don't understand what's what, and there's conflict. So hopefully this will go a long way towards mitigating a lot of that conflict and use education to further endure some of that and keep people out of danger. The 23rd, like Trish alluded to, I also went to the Utah Raptor State Park, the exhibit opening. Those are great exhibits. The exhibits for the internment camp and the CCC. There's a really cool interpretive walking trail that kind of takes you through the whole thing. Really well done. And again, I was super touched by the descendants of people who were both at the internment camp. There was actually a couple that came over from Japan, which is really something. And then as well as families of folks who had been, their grandfather had been stationed at the CCC camp, and they had a lot of correspondence and pictures from him. So it was a pretty special event. And I can't say enough about that state park. It's going to be a real asset to the community all the way around. I also attended on May 2nd, a subcommittee along with Brian and Bill on county organizational structure. We talked about a number of things, but for me, the biggest takeaway was that we talked about a position that would be created under the admin's office that would potentially involve economic development personnel, as well as a public information officer, which I'd advocate for those things, or maybe where it's still being discussed, but maybe wrapped into one position for now. I'll let Bill and Brian elaborate on that if they care to. And yesterday, along with Bill Bill and Brian attended a TRT discussion. We talked about our reserve fund and how much money we can potentially keep in that, especially in light of the new legislation that passed the reserve fund. Timing, I think we've kind of flip-flopped between a fiscal year and a calendar year, and the new legislation calls for a calendar year. But anyway, some of that discussion will inform our contract with Madden, and we'll be discussing that on an action item later today. And the other thing that came out of that, I think you guys got the invite to a joint workshop with the MTAB. Acronym changes every week, it seems like, but next week, where we will kind of unwrap the new TRT bill so that we all have a better understanding of that. And again, Brian, Bill, please feel free to elaborate. I'm sure I missed something there. So that is pretty much it for me.
Meetings of note, attended with many of you. The continuing, moving forward on the HDHO program. I attended that with many of you. Again, you guys can elaborate or pass that down a little bit here, but I'd like to see that continuing or continued collaboration with Planning Commission also. That was really nice to see us work together quickly, or I mean, in a quicker manner on this. Second, I have personally attended Jeep Safari, Indios Grenadier event. The last Mad Moose events run, can't remember the name offhand, car show, and I have personally thanked them and their attendees for attending Grant County and continue to support Grant County. As I've called out before, I think the larger, more established events have proven themselves to be nothing but a benefit to our county. And in that, quick stats from the Sheriff's Department this year, everyone here has probably been here long enough to remember when Jeep Safari was a ruckus. It was fun. There was a lot of arrest. I do believe it was one this year. I think it was one arrest the entirety of Jeep Safari this year. So they did pretty good. I love Jameson to talk about that too, but I mean the buy-in from the four-wheel drive community and to not exactly party the way they used to over potato salad has been pretty good. So talking with all those events, it's been really nice at explaining that that Grant County still would love you to attend the county and to get the buy-in from not just people in our community, but also the people attending our community. Has been really nice. So
My welcoming letter in the Jeep Safari magazine.
yes, it did.
Thank you, Mike. Mary?
I was gone predominantly the entire time, so I did attend a Utah State University Advisory Board meeting. We mostly talked about the upcoming graduation and enrollment staying strong, and how we're going to be working closely with the grade school, HMK, to start getting kids to think about going to college earlier, and it's accessible here. So that was good, and otherwise I was gone.
Very good. We hope you had a good time. Brian?
Thanks, Mary. Mike, just want to mention that I actually spoke also with the Indios folks. And they actually did mention that conversation with you, and they said that they felt extremely welcome here in Grant County. So I thought that was kind of funny.
I talked to some of those guys at the trailheads. Those machines are so, I mean, they're just the classic Land Rover reborn. There's a lot of them in
They're
town.
incredible machines.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I'm going to try to make this quick, Bill. So let's see here. On the 17th, I had a GWISA meeting, and Mark Stilson, the principal engineer, he presented. I just wanted to go over some of his presentation real quick, so I'll just take a couple of minutes of that. So the Colorado River Authority began in 2021 with a mission to protect, preserve, use, and develop Utah's waters of the Colorado River system. The 2007 interim guidelines expire in 2025. These are the rules that govern the operational plans with how we share water between Lake Powell and Lake Mead. In 2000, we'd reached a point where demand has exceeded supply right now. So, yeah, so right now there's negotiations for cuts that are going to be reasonable for both the upper basin and the lower basin states. And let's see here, based on the current hydrology, all 7 states, right, agree that there needs to be a reduction, that reductions are needed. But there's a hard deadline right now, August 26th for negotiations. So we're coming right up on it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things end up developing with that. Utah right now is working on a demand management program that will kind of allow us to be put in the driver's seats, right, with compensated voluntary reductions. Mandatory reductions, right, isn't going to work out well for anybody because it's basically going to be the junior water rights that'll suffer the most with that. The 4 goals that Utah has right now is keep Utah farmers farming, protect drinking water supplies, keep the lights on, benefit the water and the streams for fish, wildlife, and habitat, while at the same time conserving sufficient water to continue meeting our downstream compact obligations to our neighboring states. I also attended on the 21st the Southeast Colorado River Advisory Board. Senator Hinkins was there, Representative Monson and Representative Albrecht attended and provided updates from the Colorado River Caucus from the state. They said that one of their big challenges right now is providing awareness outside of the Great Salt Lake to people up there and letting them understand that there are other concerns besides that water need right up there. Once again, Mark Stilson presented, so we got to see his presentation twice, and it was really nice. On the 22nd, I met with Representative Kennedy, which was just a brief meeting. And then I also met with Madden to discuss the contract as well. On the 24th, I took a field trip with Bill up to Thompson, and we went and checked out some of the water up there. It's a fun little field trip looking at how Thompson gets their water. It's really neat, you know. On the 28th, we had the HBHO workshop. And I'm just really pleased to see that we're actually getting some movement on this and that we're moving along as quickly as we can with our reduced staff and all the hard work that everyone's been putting in to try to get this project up and going. So it's been really nice. On the 30th, I had the agenda review and then also was with Trish at the BLM Dolores Travel Management Cooperative meeting. And that's always fun going through and looking through. I mean, I love maps, right? So it's great to be like looking at all these roads and be like, oh, I want to go there. And I wonder where this little tucks into right here. So it's a ton of fun to go through something like that. And then later on that day, we had our second organizational structure meeting that Jock was talking about. Things that we talked about there basically was the organizational chart and the structural analysis of that chart. And then once again, we kind of were passing around the idea of this public information officer / economic coordinator position that we might be able to put into under the admin. On the 5th, we had a TRT reserve account discussion. We'll go through all of that in the discussion item, so I won't waste any more time with that. But the one thing that did come out in there was that we've seen a 12% drop in sales tax revenue compared to the same period last year. So that would be November through February right there. And, you know, just because I want to put this kind of up for future considerations, like I know that those are our slowest months right there, right? But this is not just like a one-time little thing that we're seeing. This is a trend that we've been seeing where things are going down. We need to figure some way to start growing our top line. You know, I just kind of feel like we haven't really had the action that's needed to really start taking these discussions and moving these things forward. So it'll be neat to see which way we go today with that Madden contract and see if we can't actually start stimulating our economy. Let's see here. Also on the 5th, or no, that was 5th. Cinco de Mayo. Crazy. Yes, yeah, weed board. Can't believe that's root date. I had the weed board meeting. It was a good meeting. Corey Farnsworth from USU brought in jointed goat grass. And he's been noticing a lot of that growing out there along Spanish Valley Drive. It's anyways, it's kind of a little jointed plant like this. And if you go like this, it's real smooth. But when you kind of push your hands like that, it's really prickly. So that's kind of how you can see it. One of the big takeaways I got out right now is everything is really green. So if you're looking for a time to go out and pick weeds, right now is the time to do it before everything goes to seed.
I am the weed picking.
Yeah, and then just also on that, I just wanted to follow up what Josh said. So I think it's gonna be May 13th will be our joint workshop for the TRT right there with us. And yeah, May 13th, you should have an invitation sent out. But I also just want to make sure also that if you guys are listening, Andy and the Sheriff Jameson are also invited to that. We want to make sure that everybody who's going to be involved in that has a chance to come. So that's all I got. Thanks. Tried.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right, Melody, you're up.
So I went to the Royal Crossing open house on Tuesday, April 22nd. They had 4 new homes that were completed and received their CFOs that day, so they were able to move in the next day. A lot of those people I grew up with, it was super fun to see. On the next day, I went to, we had a committee to review municipal advisors for the county, and we're gonna be discussing that a little bit later. Then the joint PNZ workshop on the HDHO with everyone else, so we attended that. That's great to see that moving along and appreciate everybody's hard work. Tuesday, we had an emergency Sand Flat stewardship meeting to send a letter to the commission, but that's now off our agenda, so it's kind of funny. A meeting and they're like, never mind. Anyways, Wednesday, that was the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board meeting. We had 13 applicants that came in and they each had 4 minutes to present and then 6 minutes for questions. Tomorrow, we have another special meeting set so they can make some decisions on who to recommend to the commission for those RCG and RCOG grants. So that will probably be coming up on our next meeting as far as a recommendation. Then I left that meeting and I drove to St. George. I was there for Thursday and Friday for the Utah Association of Counties Spring Legislative Management Conference. Something really interesting that they would discuss was data centers, like Trish mentioned. It was really big, like that's a really good economic driver. I don't know if Moab has any place for data centers, but they definitely talked about that a lot. There was a presentation on data privacy, and that's something that we have to initiate in the, so it's gonna take pretty much the attorney, IT, the commission, a few other groups to get that initiated by December 31st. And then my most favorite presentation that they had was on addressing housing affordability at the county level. And that was Steve Waldrop. He's the senior advisor for housing strategy from the governor's office. And he had just some really great information. He talked about that the governor's wish is 35,000 homes in 5 years. And that equals like 0.7 homes every day for 5 years. So he's like, I have a really big goal. You know, he talked about the average first homeowner's age is 38. And he asked everyone in the room if they had bought their home before they were 38. And I think everyone in the room raised their hands. So it's just crazy to see that age is moving up. You know, it's unfortunate that that's the age that people are able to get their first home. He also talked about at the governor's level, they're doing rural and resort community housing working group. And I was excited. I would like to get a little bit more information about that. So anyways, I think that's all. Let's see, one more. Yesterday had a community renewable energy agency board. They were discussing startup costs and updated the program application timelines. They're still waiting on program application docket to be finalized.
Very good. Thank you, Melody. And I attended many of the meetings we've already mentioned here, and I won't delve into too many of them. I would like to discuss a little bit about the TRT meeting yesterday and the 12% that Mr. Valls there presented us with, and which equates to a 1.5 decline for the year if we see no further loss in sales tax revenue, which is highly unlikely that it's going to continue forward at a flat level when we're down 12% for the previous 4 months. So it's something, it's the worst quarter we've had in the last 5 years. And I think it's something that we need to look at and start taking very seriously at the county. We haven't had any cuts anywhere in the county since I've been on the commission. We haven't had any cuts. Grand County only agreed to a flat growth in our budget last year after extensive fighting over the budget, considering everybody was is now concerned about the budget, I think that's great because moving forward, we have to be prepared to start making some cuts. And we also have to be prepared to start looking at ways to get this back into a positive growth. Those are the two things that I took coming out of that meeting yesterday is that one, things look terrible, and two, what are we gonna do to turn it around? And then the other thing that I'm involved in a little bit, and I just wanted to update the commission on, there's been a story that went out. And it went out to SF Gate, Men's Journal, and MSN News, and that's on the water quality at Arches National Park and rising contaminants level in it. And although I think that it was somewhat of a attempt to further put a negative spin and possibly keep people out of Arches, it's a little bit concerning when we have a report that maybe our visitors and the locals that go out there don't have the safe drinking water that they need. I've since reached out to Arches as well as I reached out to the Division of Water Rights, which actually referred me back to the Division of Water Quality where I should have gone to begin with to look for the last 5 years reports on the water at Arches. I'm extremely concerned that that type of a message would go out. It, again, it doesn't look good for the park. It doesn't look good for the people that took part in that message going out. And as I continue along here, finding out what the actual nitrate levels are and how they've been trending over the last 5 years, I'll update the county and the commission further at that time. But again, I'm a little disappointed in the fact that that story even went out to begin with.
I missed that. What journals was that in, Bill?
It's in the SF Gate, the Men's Journal, and also it was on MSN. And it's a pretty negative story about Grand County and the need for some improvements in their water system out there. And they might need improvements in their water system, but I don't think running a huge negative campaign was the way to go about it. So as I get the reports, I will update and keep everybody in the loop on it.
I know they're working with the city. They're going to be connecting to the city sewer and I think city water, aren't they?
Yeah, I know that
But
that's not
part of the reason I
part
think
of the
they
story.
did.
It's the extreme negativity of it that I was
I
just.
wonder who wrote it.
3 different people ended up with it, so I don't
It's from the
know.
National Park Service. Spoken out.
It came from the spokesperson, Karen Henniker, so. And then with that, I will move on and allow our other electeds. Gabe, if you want to start us off and go to Stephen and then Mark.
Thanks, Bill. Real quick, I went to UNAC. Yeah, there's just a number of other items that I'm working on all the time. One thing I just wanted to make sure to mention is that I had reached out to all the commissioners about restructuring of my office that I was proposing. I was just looking at an opportunity to be able to shuffle some things around to improve efficiency and effectiveness without an impact on staffing. And in pinpointing some code related to what that restructure would entail, I found out that wouldn't, such an action wouldn't actually be able to take effect until January 2027, with a commission action by this November of this year. So basically, as a follow-up to that, it didn't end up on an open discussion item in this meeting. But I'm going to fill my current staff vacancy, and I'm going to look to implement and pilot some of these concepts that I'm thinking, and then I'll be coming back to you in the next few months after some of that has been implemented, and we can discuss it more at that time. And yeah, that's all I have for today.
Sure. Met with different entities regarding some contracts that we have going. You folks will be able to see that this evening. Also, I attended the Utah Prosecution Conference. It's one of the annual conferences that I attend. They do a run through of all of the new legislation. There were about 600 bills that were passed. So for the attorneys to keep up with it, it is a substantially large amount. We get a case law update, we get a civil legislative update, and then they flew in. It was exceptionally dry, but it was very interesting. Professor on evidence, rules of evidence. So we got about I think 3 or 4 hours of that. My staff loved it. They were like, it was very exciting. But otherwise, everything's going well. We've got the hire in the office, the returning hire in the office has assimilated well back into the office. Things are going exceptionally well. And now one of the benefits of having that position there has allowed some other staff to take vacations where they normally wouldn't have felt comfortable or able to do that. And that's included Terry getting out of the office, which is impressive because Terry lives and dies in the county attorney's office. She does so much work, and to see her feel comfortable enough to take off some time, that's a really good sign to see. So otherwise, things are going well in my office, and that's it.
Mark, please.
I've been here for a few months now and continue to be impressed by how active you all are in your commission roles. It's refreshing, it's impressive, and I think each one of you care deeply about your community and your residents, and I just wanted to commend you on that. It's not only you, but it's elected officials on either side of me, as well as our sheriff, assessor, recorder. All of our other elected officials seem to have that same caring about them and the community. And I just wanted to let you know I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mark. It's a place worth caring about, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And we're glad that you're settling in and enjoying it. I just counted, it's 5 months, right?
Yeah, all right.
And we have lots of good county employees as well.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay, with that, I know the next thing on here is a public hearing, but we have to wait until after 6, I believe, for that. So we will move into the approval of our consent agenda here. And with that, I will read off our ratification of payments and bills. And so what I've got for a total bills of $1,532,618.22, with of that a payroll of $508,593.39. Total bills and payroll combined for $2,041,211.61. And with that, I will look for, let's see, we probably better read off the rest of the items.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lot. That was pretty short.
So we've got the approval of the minutes for April 15th. We've got the ratification of letter of support for Emily's telephone bead grant. Ratification of letter of support for the Three Canyons Ranch. Ratification of AEAS sponsor signature authority certification delegation airport signer. Ratification of digital media advertising contract with All Gear Digital. G, reimbursement for state of Utah for familiarization tours. H, ratification of ICA for Star Hall roof replacement. Like we're gonna get to that one now. I, ratification of ICA for HVAC replacements caused by hail damage at county facilities. J, approval of independent contract agreement with Snob Productions. 2025 Grand County Fair. I wonder who thought that name up. K, approval of independent contract agreement with JTS Media for the 2025 Grand County Fair. And then L, approval of independent contract agreement with Shires Bounce Rentals for the 2025 Grand County Fair. M, board member applicant considerations for the Grand County Fair Board. And then finally, N, contract for non-motorized trails master plan consultant. So do we, yes, Mike.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner McCandless, all present in favor. Passes unanimously with Commissioner Hadler absent. All right, moving on to number 5, our promotional spending and TRT compliance maximum reserve fund balance. This is a collaborative work with Commissioner Martinez, Clerk Auditor Dave Wojtek, Mr. Frederick Gill, Director of the Moab Office of Tourism. Sure, please.
Want me to kick it off? Just going over this item right here.
But I guess I was never approached about presenting this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize.
Second.
Yep. So anyway, so on the, there were some concerns raised in the, April 8th MTAB meeting regarding the TRT reserve account balance. When we were looking at it, we saw that there was $3,591,795 sitting in our TRT. During that conversation, we were wondering what the limit was or what was the maximum amount that we were allowed to carry in that account. There was a little bit of disagreement trying to find the actual legislature of what that maximum was. We ended up finding out it was 50% of the current year's spend. I'm sorry, the current year's collection right there that's allowed to be inside of that account. And then kind of back and forth working with Gabe and his office right there. We tried to figure out and kind of come up currently where we're at and looking at a forecast of where we're going to be going right now. Especially regarding the new TRT laws that are coming in and how that's going to kind of change that account balance right there from what we budgeted into what we'll actually end up looking at. We had a meeting yesterday, like I think Commissioner Hadler mentioned with Commissioner Winfield, Commissioner Hadler, Stephen Bowles, and Mark Kiner were all there. And we were trying to clear up some of the miscommunications on, how much was budgeted, how much is actually spent, where it looks like we were going to kind of land at. As we kind of went through those conversations, it looked like we were looking at our current media spend right now of 1.6 million, that we were going to be right on the line of possibly going over or possibly being just shy of that 50% maximum reserve limit right there. The recommendation, at least that I had, and I think that we kind of discussed, was to move up our media spend right there from the 1.6 up to 2.5 million for 2 reasons. One is taking a proactive approach in this manner. It'll be easier to have Madden go ahead and write us a media plan based off 2.5 million that we can then say, oh, we're not going to actually end up spending that amount. Rather than come at the end of the year and find out that we are at that spot right there and going, oh no, we need to spend another $500,000 or we need to spend $1 million, and basically just taking that money and having to throw it against the wall. That's one thing. And then also the second thing is looking at that 12% decline that we've seen. I think that it's really time that we go ahead and try to inject some money into our economy and see if we can stimulate it. So that's the basis of kind of what I have right there.
All right, anybody want to add to that? Ben, Gabe, I guess.
The only thing I would add is, timing, we're finalizing that contract, so we'll do what the commission advised, and we're gonna execute on the plan, so.
Same amount.
2.5.
And that is up from 1.6, right, Brett?
Correct, up from 1.6.
So an additional essentially $900,000 to the Madden ad spend for
Correct.
until the end of December.
And that, yes, and that would be a cap as well. So
Right,
that's not
Up to.
up to 2.5, right? So you get the cap at 1.6, the cap would then go up to 2.5.
I think part of that is to make sure that we don't get into the process there where we have too much money in our reserve account and have to spend it in a quick, unwise manner. In my mind, I believe it's also a chance that allows us to shift that number down much easier than it would be to shift it up at a later date. So if we don't have to spend that amount of money, I think it's much easier to subtract off of that. So, yeah, Jacques, go ahead.
I'll make the motion. I'd move to approve a media plan in the amount of, or up to, actually, I'll change that language, up to the amount of 2.5 million to be created by Madden with the assistance of the Office of Tourism and pending approval of the Moab Tourism Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Second, a motion by Commissioner Hackman, seconded by Commissioner.
Figure this out. We'll figure this out.
Any further comment anywhere, anybody?
No, I'll just add on that, and we're also still looking at that, at the accounts right now. I'm gonna be working with Gabe and Bill and then Stephen as well in the next coming weeks, just to make sure that that account is all settled up and squared away. So that we know that when we're looking at that account, moving on into the future, we kind of know where we're at, sitting at that for a forecast.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get to that red line and to get some more ad spend.
I'm gonna go with the county attorney and then you, Mike.
Just a clarifying question. When we look at the cap, is it the goal that you want to spend beyond the original amount plus whatever it is to keep us within compliance? Or is it that 2.5?
That 2.5 right there should keep us in compliance.
Okay, and so in the event that you could spend less than that. I'm just trying to give kind of the.
We could spend less than that.
Okay, I'm just trying to give kind of the ballpark because when you use a ceiling, just there you go.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it looked like when we were having the discussion yesterday, it looked like 1.6 was iffy, so the extra 900,000 should give us a huge pillow, I think. So up to 2.5, I think is reasonable.
Mike, go ahead. Sorry, I skipped you.
You're okay. Double-sided question here. Who reports? Okay, when we give this contract to Madden and Madden puts together a plan, who is the guarantor of hitting those plan steps? Like who checked? Who does Madden report to?
You report to us.
And then you pass it along to us? I just like that upkeep.
Well, I mean, we'll be invoiced and there'll be a budget versus actual, so you'll know along the way how much we.
Okay.
But if we just like in previous.
And I don't know Madden, I'm not saying this, but if they didn't hit their mark, we'd know about it too, right?
Well, thing is too, yeah, absolutely. We communicate that and we have almost at the end of Q2, so we're gonna need hard and fast and.
Gonna be fast.
I mean, I think there's gonna need to be a lot of back and forth understanding where we are, we're on forecast and. If you guys say put on the brakes or turn up the knob, it's what we've done on that in-house. Hardest part was getting the mechanisms to pay that amount, small amount. Commissioner Winfield's been very helpful with helping us move some IOs through and the team, so Stephen's been very helpful in getting those in place, so yeah, we've endeavored and to do the 2-month plan, so this is a much bigger 6-month plan.
And in that same thing, I'd also like it's Commissioner Winfield, Jacques, and myself on audit committee. And
Probably, right?
I do believe, and I really would like, I know that we're going to look at the in-house audit. I would also like to have the audit committee be willing or able to, through staff, have some of these contractual obligations looked at through audit committee and county attorney going forward. But I think it's part of it's within our scope of the audit committee.
I've got one question. So does this vote today allow this to move forward, or does it still have to go to review from the county attorney and come back one more meeting?
So right now you're looking at your item is the promotional spending and TRT compliance. Your next item is the Madden contract.
Okay.
And I believe that also the motion said pending approval of the end tab.
Okay, right. You're right. Answers my question. Anybody else?
I'm curious why the approval of the advisory board comes after our approval. I mean, it seems like the buck stops here. We approve it, it's approved. And they shouldn't be able to override us.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it ended up in that
I
position. I
would
don't
agree
think
with you on
they've
that,
waived.
Mary.
So I don't know why it has to be approved by the board. I think that should be taken, I would move to have that taken out of the motion.
Well, I do know that our meeting to discuss this was just yesterday, and so they haven't had a chance to weigh in on it, and I know the buck stops here and totally agree with you, but neither do I want to cut.
I think they should be advised of it and hear of it and be kept abreast of it, but I don't think the approval of it should be based on them. It's based on us. If we've approved it, it's approved.
Right, and the language of the motion doesn't say that. I mean, if they didn't approve of this, then I guess it could always come back before us and we could revisit it. Based on
Then
their
that slows everything
decision.
down.
When's their next meeting?
13th.
When we have that joint meeting.
With us, yeah.
Would it work if I just amended my motion not to include that? And then, of course, we can go over that at the thing. Is that cool with everybody?
It's two substitutes. Then we don't have to vote on it.
You have to vote on the amendment, and then you vote on the original motion.
I guess
Substitute motion.
All right, I'll make a substitute motion. If I made the original motion,
It's been seconded, so it's been taken by the body.
Okay. So I will amend my original motion to.
Substitute motion.
I'm sorry, I'll substitute. I move to approve a media plan up to the amount of 2.5 million to be created by Madden, the assistance of the Moab Office of Tourism.
I'll second that.
I was like,
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hadler and seconded by Commissioner Hadid. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We can move on to number 6, the media agency contract with Madden.
We have several reps from Madden online, in case you guys.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Okay, Mr. Frederick-Gill and Mr. Valls, we'll let you two start us off on this one.
I'll first I'll give some background, but I want to introduce or allow Madden personnel to introduce themselves. Leslie, let me just turn it over to you. Maybe you can quickly introduce your team.
Yeah, that sounds great. My name is Leslie Robal. I am the Senior Director of Destination Strategy. So that is really the fancy way of saying I am your go-to person all the time. So I will be working hand in hand with our team as well as your team, delivering on goals, KPIs, and being really in charge of the active communication back and forth. But we'll kick it over to Bria Hammock, who leads the team that will be working on your account.
Yeah, good evening all. It's so nice to meet all of you. My name is Bria Hammock. I am a Vice President of Destination Strategy. So like Leslie said, I lead our Mountain West and Pacific Northwest team here at Madden, and it's really nice to be here.
We also have Crystal James on the call, so I will let her introduce herself a little bit more, but she's really been the one who's been going through all the contracting process as well. So wanted to make sure she was here to hear any updates or information.
Hi, everybody. It's great to meet you all and put names with faces. I'll just be in the back end support with any contractual questions or anything that we need to get on paper. And I leave everything to my subject matter experts, you will be in great hands with them.
Okay, so the agenda item was to approve the execution of the Madden contract. But I will say that we're still working through a few items. Stephen Stocks and Ben and I are still meeting with Leslie to work out a few items. I don't believe any of them are showstoppers, so we have a provisional agreement to sign this contract, but we can't sign it yet. And then actually, we just found that we're going to update the contract amount 1.6 to 2.5. So there's one change. Want to give them any opportunities to see if that affects any of their plans. But this contract is expected to be resolved. The items are expected to be resolved this week. So I don't know, Stephen, do you have any other kind of comments on this provisional nature?
No, I think there's some items that we've noted for the company to look at and address. I think those can be addressed in a timely manner. And then once those items are addressed, I think we can execute a contract. Any inconvenience, I don't think are going to cause, I don't think they're going to cause a substantial delay in the process. And so if the commission wanted to consider approving it, conditional on legal review, we could do that. Commission wanted to see it back again, we could do that as well. The issues are, some of them are very minor in detail, such as changing the we do look at changing the gate, or changing some of the provisions there. Obviously, the figure has to change. Yeah, we have some other just kind of housekeeping items. We're happy to bring it back before the commission. Or if you guys want to approve it pending legal review, I'm happy to do that as well.
Just a quick question here. I mean, it seemed like I've been watching this process as we kind of been going through. Where did we end up with the holdup? I thought that we kind of had everything kind of set up on the contract.
The holdup, a lot of complex details, and it just getting in touch with everybody, just minor issues. In fact, I'll take the blame for being part of that holdup. There's just a lot of loose ends that we tied up. And we will be meeting with Leslie. I would love to be able to say it was perfect coming in here, but it's not. You'll have to work on.
I want to answer too, is the team has been very good about going back and forth. So there were some wordings. So for instance, up to making sure that we had co-ops called out, the different measurement tools. They responded really well, but then it was a matter of getting it in place and getting it to legal review. Attorney Stocks worked really fast to get a quick turnaround there with some edits that we didn't have as of yesterday because it wasn't ready for legal review that quick, but we've addressed them all back and forth. But I think would be with the amount in this, and as we came out of our contract planning meeting, we had our kickoff meeting, we said then that we'd work fast back and forth, but that it might get to the commission meeting where there was some small things that had to be ratified. I think that was said in that meeting, and that's where we are. It's very close. It's just, it needs a few more button tightening, and also I wouldn't feel comfortable pushing it through until it has a final review attorney that covered every base.
Yeah, Mike.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to accept the contract for media services for Madden Preprint Media LLC pending legal review.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner McCandless. Any further thoughts or discussion? Folks, all right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the Madden contract? Passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and thank you, Madden, for wading through all of that with us.
And commissioners, to make it clear, it's with the updated value on it as well, correct?
Yes, okay, it is with the updated value. And maybe, after it's had the county attorney's approval, send it out to the commissioners. If there's anybody that might want to see it, if there's any reason to.
Sure, and normally what happens is if in a circumstance like this, it still has to be executed by the chair. And so I can circulate it with everybody where everybody's happy with it. And then prior to the chair signing it, if there was anyone that had some serious heartburn, they could reach out and raise that issue. But I anticipate it'll be done before the next commission meeting, so within the next week.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. We will move on to number 7 here. It's an award of the RFP for Public Relations Agency. Allison, it looks like, is presenting that, and I'm going to start off with just a kudos, I guess. I had a business reach out to me and thank me for the letters that you've been sending out. I don't know what they are, but he was very appreciative of the knowledge and the information that you put into it. So thank you for what you're doing over there, and carry on.
In the leads, so she sends out leads of people who request information here on the.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Well, good job on that, because I heard about it, so.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun talking to all the businesses. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about the PR firm. This has been in the works for a while. The board approved this RFP at their March 11th meeting. We published it the next day. I think we received 28 proposals. And our selection committee met on April 14th, and then we narrowed it down to this award for Camp Stories.
All right.
What was the choice between Camp Stories and Brouhaha?
Yeah, so it came down to how well we wanted our agency to work with our other contractors. And so we reached out to our new media buying agency and asked if they had a relationship with either, and they recommended Camp Stories.
Jock, go ahead.
I'll move to award, I move to award the Public Relations Agency contract to Camp Stories and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents and contracts upon completion of legal review.
I'll second.
Okay, all right. Motion by Commissioner Hadler, seconded by Commissioner McCandless, with an attempt by Commissioner McCurdy. All right, any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, both of you. Appreciate your time.
Did it all, I just had a front row seat.
All right, we've got time maybe for one more here. Number 8, selection of the municipal advisor. And let me put my page here. Mr. Miles, come on back up. And Mr. Wojtek, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, well, we put out this request for municipal advisors. I guess the background is a little bit important here. We are doing the facility needs assessment in the county this year, with the primary need being public safety building. So in this effort, we wanted to get a municipal advisor on board just to take part in establishing our financing options and what we could potentially do. We did get 3 bids. We eliminated 1, and we were between Zions Public Finance, which we do a lot of work with, and Cruz and Associates, and Marcus Killer is on the line here. And we had a review team to look at both of these bids. It was a very difficult choice, but we were recommending Cruz and Associates for 3 key reasons. 1, they were the lowest cost provider. 2, they have experience in the specific use of the 2216 sales tax, which is an option we can employ to increase our sales tax on certain things, not prepared or unprepared food, not groceries or gasoline. But anyway, Marcus and Cruz have experience in applying the 2216 sales tax for the specific use of building public safety infrastructure with Iron County. And they exhibited a lot of ambition and knowledge in evaluating specific Grand County sales tax trends, or forecasting what the sales tax might mean and what that might mean in terms of bonds. So the recommendation is to go with Cruz and Associates, although Zions is still a very, very strong competitor and a vendor that we will, I'm sure use for other needs. So that was the notes that we took from our meeting, but now we can open it for discussion.
And real quick, Trish, before I have you go, I'll just say that I sat in on that as well. And I would say that we would be in good hands with either of these companies. I think that both of them interviewed well, and at least for myself, I gained a ton of knowledge and certainly got an education on bonds and some things that I'd never had before. So Trish, go ahead.
I guess, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys don't know, but is it common for us to contract this out? Have we done this in the past? I guess I'm just trying to kind of understand. Again, it's another big spend, and so I kind of wonder.
So there's actually no upfront cost. This is all based on a commission unless we were to seek financial advisory services that were in addition to this agreement, this sort of arrangement. But these folks mainly work on commission when they help us secure bonds and go out to market. And
that helps me.
And from a cost perspective, I want to reiterate what Bill said. There's not a bad choice here. Certainly we want to maintain a good relationship with Zion's Public Finance. I did run into Alex Buxton. He had to go celebrate his mom's 80th birthday. So he couldn't be here tonight, but he did make it clear that if there was conversation about cost considerations, he wouldn't want that to be a decision maker for this commission. So I just want to throw that out here on his behalf, but we did all feel really good about Cruz and Associates. And but as far as both firms, I saw firsthand references from clerks and auditors at UAC just this last week for both firms, just to do my last bit of due diligence. And really, there's just really only positive things to say about either firm. And I thought that's why Stephen and I made sure to get a couple of commissioners on this selection committee, this interview committee, just because it is such a hard decision, and we wanted to get some direct sort of commission contact with these options. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And we are only one of 10. We're 10, one of 10 of the 29 counties that does not have a municipal or a financial advisor named
Okay, great.
with this agreement. So we definitely, it's something that we want to get up to speed with.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Anybody else? Brian?
No, I move that Cruz be engaged as a municipal advisor to assist Grand County with financial planning and future bond issuance as defined in the county ongoing facility needs assessment and as approved by this commission.
All right, so Commissioner Martinez has a motion and seconded by Commissioner McCurdy.
Went strong.
Got one in. All right, so any other discussion, folks?
Chip in one hand.
Yeah, Melody?
Yeah, I'll just comment as well that I was on that advisory or that. It was just very interesting. I learned a lot. And then down at UAC, I did talk to both of the vendors. I was able to discuss with them and talk to some of the other counties. So both great companies. I think Cruz, I think that sales tax piece was key because it will be helpful to have someone that's gone through that, like they did with Iron County. When and if we use them, I know that that's not building anything right now, but we have them ready.
Marcus is on the phone if I didn't mention that. Any questions for him?
We see him there. And so we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Cruz? Motion passes unanimously. Marcus, thanks for working with us.
Thank you so much, and we really look forward to working with the county and the staff and everyone involved, and we're excited to do a great job and go through all the options as you have your financing needs come up. So thank you again, and we really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. All right, we will move on to number 9, resolution amending the Grand County purchasing policy to include a local option clause. Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, this is something that I started working on I think it was on the second meeting, and it kind of got held up a little bit. What this does is it makes it so that we have a preference for people who are licensed vendors here in this area. So what we created was a 45-mile radius from Center and Main. So anybody who's licensed to provide services in that area would be given a preference, and that's up to $50,000. 10% or more, right? So they might be a little bit more expensive, but I think that it's worth it that we keep the money here locally. I mean, we work so hard to get the money into town. I hate to see it just walk right away. It's great. It would be nice to be able to see that money stay, because that money's going to end up going and be spread all throughout our community.
Yes, Jock.
I commend Commissioner Martinez for working on this. I think this is great. I always go local whenever possible. It's not going to hurt our bottom line much. I think keeping the money in the community is going to help. So I would move to approve the amended purchasing policy as presented to a local purchasing option as outlined in Exhibit A.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Adler, seconded by Commissioner Levine. Further discussion? Mike?
Question, would it not be better to Grand County instead of a 45-mile radius?
No, because you got Spanish Valley. Right. So you have San Juan County, and you have those businesses that are over there, and they contribute to.
And they very much.
And they do. And then the 45-mile radius, it actually, one of the tricks is on a 45-mile radius, you'd actually include Grand Junction. right? And so that's why you see inside of there, that was one great idea right there, is if we included Utah. Right, so that cuts Grand Junction off on that right there. So it's a, let me see if I can read it.
As the crow flies there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just as the crow flies, it's also within the state of Utah, which limits it to Grant County itself.
Yeah. That was good.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you for that.
So maybe we should go 3 more minutes in that discussion, but
Yeah, there's more to go there.
You can probably get through the next.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Consideration number 10 of ordinance adjusting transient room tax TRT to allowable limits. Commission administration and administrator's office.
this is, I don't know, Stephen, if you want to talk about it, you want me to?
You can.
This is increasing the 4.25 to 4.5. So one of the TRT taxes.
Right. So in just as background for everybody listening, the new legislation that is HB 456 that goes into effect on July 1st in order, there's a lot of components and moving parts to that legislation, but part of that is the outdoor recreation mitigation grant that's available from the state that will allow smaller counties to petition the state for a return of some of their TRT. But in order to be eligible for that, we have to collect the 4.5%. So if we don't increase this to 4.5, we are not eligible to apply for any of those grants.
So, and it's limited to only certain types of counties can get this. We were one of the qualifying counties that are able to obtain this. And then the breakdown is, I think we've talked about this before in the past. That's where we talked about EMS and other agencies collecting additional data points. So it's mandatory to be able to collect that. It's an increase in the percentage, and it's same connected with the TRT expenditures. So it's 4.5 and it's a 0.25% increase.
And I think Brian's done the math. I think I did the same math as we came up with shockingly similar numbers, but it should equal over the course of a year of a good year of 400,000 to 500,000 extra in TRT.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
There is, I will say, based on the legislation, we have to notify the state tax commission, and I've emailed them yesterday to ask about the implementation. So once we notify them, there is a 90-day lag, and then it starts on the first quarter. So I'm kind of waiting to hear back. I think we might have missed the July 1st deadline. So this might not actually take effect until October 1st, but I'm waiting for the answer to that question. And as soon as I know, I'll let you guys know.
Very good. Mike?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve an ordinance increasing the transient room tax TRT to 4.5% in accordance with House Bill 456.
Yes, all right. A motion by Commissioner McCurdy, seconded by Commissioner McCandless. Any other discussion?
Other than Mike, you can't get a second if you.
I was trying to second my own.
I'll throw that out.
Go ahead.
So I just want to tell our admin, good job. When we were down at UAC, same thing. They were discussing the TRT, and majority of the counties hadn't even started their resolution, and they were all asking UAC for an example. So maybe we could send ours to UAC for example, but anyways, I just want to say good job.
Yeah, appreciate it. Any other comment, Jacques?
Yeah, I mean, this is a no-brainer, makes sense to do. And I also wanted to point out that the Democratic representative voted or made a motion to increase ad spend tonight, and the Republican made a motion to raise taxes. So I just wanted that on the record.
Some transient room taxes.
All right, any other discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Must be.
I'm gonna attribute this to commission admins lunches. Thank you.
4 or 5 there. So I do believe that it would be okay then to move to our public hearing, correct? Oh, do citizens be heard first? All right. I thought we needed to open that at 6 was my understanding.
Just anytime after 6.
Okay, thank you.
You can't.
Clarification. All right, we will start with citizens be heard. We will start in the room as I don't see anybody online. Anybody that would like to come up? No citizens. Oh, Pete, of course. Please come up. Sorry, I was hoping somebody else would go first.
Do I need to identify myself?
Please,
I'm Chris. So I have 3 points I'd like to make really quickly. regarding the proposed cell phone tower up at Black Ridge. It could serve all its purposes at 150 feet tall instead of 250 feet tall. It'd be cheaper to maintain, and it would minimize the visual impact and safer as far as the FAA goes. So I would recommend you go with 150 feet or less than the 250 feet. As far as e-bikes, I understand there's a proposal to send a letter to the BLM supporting Class 1 e-bikes on all, designated lands. Once again, I strongly encourage you to go with the collaborative recommendations of all the vested interest groups locally, the trail mix, the motorized trail mix, whatever else I'm forgetting. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum lacks the local expertise. And so I don't think you need to react to his blanket recommendation. What happens to transparency and local control? I encourage you to go with that. And one last thing, this is just speculation. Somebody I heard was wondering if the county building department is going to be disbanded and outsourced. I don't know if there's any truth to that. If that is the case, I think it's probably a bad idea, but that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Please come forward, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Peterson. I actually submitted a couple different letters to you, but I did want to just show up in person to speak specifically to the letter on the e-bike allowances and just really strongly recommend that you do not pursue that avenue at this point. I really feel that e-bikes on our non-motorized trails, we need, I think, a lot more time to evaluate if they're appropriate, where they're appropriate. And I don't believe that they'll ever be appropriate on all of the trails. So I really wanted to just make that point. And also regarding the cell tower, as Pete mentioned, my understanding, although I haven't seen the documents, is that the BLM and the developer of this project have reviewed an option for the 150-foot tower and that it would serve the purposes that they're trying to achieve, but would not necessitate a constant flashing light on the top and would be a lot less visible. And I would really recommend that the commission consider making that proposal to support that avenue as opposed to the 250-foot one. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Anybody else?
Hello, everybody. Cliff Coombs, Chair of the Motorized Trails Committee. Speaking about the BLM letter, which is still in the scoping period. And so you can take a position on what you think the BLM should ultimately decide, but all they're really asking for in this stage is what alternatives should be developed. And the MTC last fall recommended an alternative that would open all the trails they listed to Class 1 e-bikes, because we think that it's time for the BLM to fully analyze that and compare it to other alternatives. We will all have the opportunity to comment once they release those alternatives in their analysis. And at that point, they can choose anything within the range of alternatives that they've developed. So, if they were to develop only an alternative based on the letter that was sent by the commission last November, which had some great points, but it would basically put trails beyond the Moab brands outside of the scope at that point of any further analysis of decision making in this plan. Whereas, if they do develop an alternative with all the trails that they've listed, then they can choose anything between that and the no action alternative that's the current rules. So that could include, just the Moab Brands trails being open to class 1 or anything in between. And so my hope is that you'd support the full range of alternatives, so that everyone's suggestions thus far can be thoroughly vetted by the BLM. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Good evening. I'm David Wilson. I'm an at-large member of Trail Mix, and I'm here regarding the new proposed bike letter. Having been an advocacy for mountain biking since the early 90s and having fought very hard for our trails, mountain bike trails, having been run off of many trails, having been sabotaged by other users, and having some very difficult fights to get the trails that we have. I think we need to take a really hard look at our non-motorized trails and keeping them that way. We may end up losing other trails or those trails altogether for other reasons. I think that the letter that we came up with back in the fall that you guys, the commission at that time came up with, should be the one that you stick with, as that's what we spent a lot of time working on with our committees and giving you guys recommendations. I'm kind of concerned about why this is being brought up again. I think it should run its course and let us do some research, let our great GCAT department, the award-winning GCAT department, do its job. And maybe we can learn something really cool about e-bikes and how they will affect the area around here. And maybe we can become a place where people will want to come and e-bike and won't turn away other users. A lot of friends who do not want to come to Moab anymore because it's too busy. They're tired of dealing with other users on the trails. They don't like coming out here because it's hard to find camping. We have plenty of visitors that are coming here. And if we add bikes to our non-motorized trails, we might run into issues. I'm all in favor of having class 1 e-bikes as long as they can be monitored in the brands area for a study, and then we go from there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? I think we have online now. All right. AJ, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm AJ Throgmorton, live over at 186 West Center Street. I wanted to speak up related to the e-bike letter myself. I don't really have much to say. It has already been eloquently captured in this letter as it's written, so I did want to say that I support it as is. I think it's going to help with the inclusivity and get more people riding around here who necessarily can't because of maybe handicaps or any physical limitations, and it doesn't really make sense for them to have to go through extra hoops just to get out on these trails and ride the only way that they can. So I'm in support of it, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, nobody else online, it looks like. Anybody else who would like to speak as citizen be heard? All right, we will move on then. Thank you, folks. We will move to our public hearing. Looks like, what do we actually do here? Do we close this hearing, open that one? Stop the commission meeting. We need a motion to do that?
No, you can.
Okay, we're gonna pause this meeting and we will open our public hearing at 6:11 for the Community Development Block Grant second public hearing, and that has Ms. Myers.
I'll come up. I don't know that I have much to present. There is a required script that we need for you to read. And yeah, to this process is very dictated to us. So should be a script, the packet, but
Caitlin, make sure we get the script right, please. Make sure we get the script right. All right. Thank you.
I'm gonna defer to Laura.
Make sure we get something. This is the script, okay,
Bill has what I have.
I will make a stab at this. Grand County will hold a public hearing to discuss the project determined to be applied for in the CDBG Small Cities Program in program year 2025, entitled Arroyo Crossing Phase 2 Infrastructure Project, located at 2022 Spanish Valley Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532. Comments will be solicited on project scope, implementation, and its effects on residents. The hearing will begin at 6 p.m. on May 6th, 2025, and will be held at the Grand County Commission Chambers located at 125 East Center Street, Moab, Utah, 84532. Further information can be obtained by contacting Gabriel Wojtek at 435-259-1321. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, individuals needing special accommodations, including auxiliary community aids and services, during this hearing should notify Gabriel Wojtek at Grand County Clerk's Office located at 125 East Center Street, Moab, Utah, 84532, at least 3 days prior to the hearing. Individuals with speech and or hearing impairments may call the Relay Utah. What?
Chair, would you mind if I bulked up your script to continue the hearing with some more text here? Can I give you some relief?
Please.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So as Chair Woodfield was saying, this hearing is being called to allow citizens to provide input concerning the project that was awarded under the 2025 CDBG program. Laura Harris from the Moab Community Area Moab Area Community Land Trust is here. And the application was successful in the regional rating and ranking process for the Arroyo Crossing Phase 2 infrastructure project, with CDBG grant funds awarded in the amount of $423,558, contributing to a total project cost of $1,679,760. The project is the creation of roadway, sidewalks, sewer, water, and electrical infrastructure installation for the initiation of Phase 2 at Arroyo Crossing Land Trust subdivision located at 2022 Spanish Valley Drive. And so now, Chair Winfield, if you would ask for any comments or questions from the audience, thanks for allowing me to help there.
Yes, thanks for the help. So if there are any comments from the audience online, please feel free to chime in. Seeing none, we leave the meeting open until, what's the date?
I think you just adjourn it. I think you can close it.
Oh, we close it now. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so the meeting is closed. We will go back to our regularly scheduled commission meeting at 6:15 p.m. That's it.
Very procedural.
Thank you.
It needs red tape. Yeah.
All right, Caitlin, we get it correctly though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all for supporting our obtaining of $423,000 for affordable housing.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. One more.
That was the easiest public hearing. Ooh. Didn't even have to have a motion.
Great. Let's see, where did we end off here?
You're on number 11, though.
Thank you. All right, we are on to number 11, approval of letter to legislators regarding AmeriCorps Vista program. This one is Commissioner Hedin.
So I'm trying to just, keep up with what's going on a federal level in the Department of Government Efficiency. And when it comes down to local topics that affect us, I think it's really important that we push back and we become active. So on April 25th, there was Department of Government Efficiency terminated or shuttered the AmeriCorps program. Roughly 330,000 AmeriCorps and 400 million were in grants were canceled. in this movement. Locally, loss of 16 AmeriCorps affecting community rebuilds, Beacon and the Moab Free Health Clinic. Just so you guys know, there's a coalition of 24 states that have filed suit against DOJ for these actions. Just kind of on a personal level, I think, and I might only know, and if I say this wrong, I know that there's 3 AmeriCorps. Is there 4? Is there 4? Laura, were you in AmeriCorps? 4 people in this room. Gabe was my first. I started the AmeriCorps Vista program in this. We had AmeriCorps, but not Vistas. So Gabe was the first AmeriCorps Vista in Grand County. How long ago was that? I don't have. 09.
Not today.
And I can't tell you, when I ran that program, eventually there was 10 organizations and I don't know how many vistas. I'll just tell you, I wanted out eventually because it became a really huge thing to try to manage it. But I cannot tell you the amount of vibrant, intelligent, volunteer-oriented individuals that it has brought into our community. And a ton of these people have stayed in our community. So Tess Barger, Caitlin Myers, Laura Harris. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And so I think by writing these letters, hopefully our senators and representative will understand that these really affect our community. And that's about it. The letter is in the packet. If you guys have any questions for me, again, I'm not a expert on this, but I do think it really affects our community personally, and hopefully we will take a stance on that.
Very good. John.
Yeah, I second everything Trish said. I know quite a few Vistas who've come to this community and contributed an incredible amount of energy and enthusiasm and just great people who have stayed in the community and worked hard in the county and in other nonprofit programs. So I enthusiastically support this letter. I think it's a huge detriment to the community not to have this program continue. So I would move to approve the letter to legislators regarding the AmeriCorps Vista program.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Hadler, seconded by Commissioner McGann. Further discussion. I will just start asking. I know there was some discussion about including the number currently.
Yeah, and I put that all in there. Melanie reached out to David Olson.
Guys that I didn't.
Those statistics, and we put those in there.
Very good, thank you. 16, thank you. All right, Mary, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate the importance of this program for our small community. You know, we've benefited greatly as a county. And our nonprofits, I think, if they lose their vistas, are going to be really a tough situation. And I agree with Trish that it's important that we make a statement and let our senators and congressmen, the U.S. senators and congressmen know, so that hopefully they will take a stand and help keep some of these important programs going.
Anybody else? Mike?
Well-written letter.
Thank
It
you.
speaks very well and very directly to the impact to our local community in this. That has my buy-in, so.
It wasn't AI generated either. Are you impressed?
I don't see any double spaces, anything special there.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously.
Supporting that. Thank you.
Right, welcome. We will move on to number 12, approval of letter to the BLM regarding Class 1 e-bike use on designated mountain bike trails. Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah. So I'm presenting an alternative position regarding the Class 1 e-bike access on designated mountain bike trails in Grand County. The previous letter submitted by this body did not provide a clear path supporting Class bikes integration. So this letter just reaffirms Grand County's commitment to accessible outdoor recreation and thriving local economy. The new position advocates for Class 1 e-bike access on all mountain bike trails listed in the BLM's scoping document as a viable alternative, which is a little bit different than claiming a position. Let's see here. Concerns I had with the previous letter, right? The first off was the BLM's NEPA process. So the BLM, when I was at both the Trail Mix Committee and the Motorized Trail Committee when this was being talked about, they indicated that they were not, that the a trial process or a pilot period, right, didn't really lend itself to the NEPA process. And so for that reason, I just never really thought that the letter that we provided really kind of met that criteria that they were looking for. But more importantly, policies that, slam the door on visitors is kind of what this reminds me of, right? It's like Grand County has gone from, being like an innovative way to accept people and all their cool things that they do out here to shutting the door on new uses that are out here that are competing with the uses that we're already seeing. It's like caution or keep out, right? The letter kind of reads, about potential impacts and taking a cautious approach. And when I hear things like that, it just seems like ways that we're keeping people out, from enjoying our public lands. Cool. Anyways, and I look at it from quite a few things from this commission, right? I look at it from the advertising policy that we had. I look at the support of the Arches Reservation System. I look at how we treated the Labyrinth Rims process when we did it. And I also look at this e-bike letter right here. It's just a way to keep restrictions, right, going. Why I support this letter right here, right, is there's a lot of new riders that are coming in. I think all Sand Flats, not Sand Flats, but the Motorized Trail Committee and the Trail Mix all acknowledge like this is a big use that's coming in. And if you look at all the comments that we've received, right, we've received comments from both sides, right? There's a lot of people that are really interested in seeing e-bikes, as an alternative out here. And this letter right here supports the idea that the BLM will provide an alternative that has that alternative right there. I think Cliff spoke really well today about where we're kind of at in that scoping process. This is just asking that we have an alternative to allow more, to allow more comment, right? To allow all of the trails to be open, rather than to have our top comment be just the brand trails as they are. We've seen success on this in many other communities, and I think that it's a model that we can get behind right there.
Yes, Jacques, go ahead.
Thanks. I got a lot to say. First off, scoping period for this officially ended on November 8th, which was exactly 6 months ago. I had a conversation with someone earlier and we were talking about why we're wasting time on this again. We passed it unanimously without any controversy. I went back and watched the meeting. There's a couple of good points brought up. There was no public comment. It was a pretty dry issue. We all agreed on it. And we sent a great letter that was a collaborative letter that was built on comment from 3 different agencies. And that was it. When I saw this letter in the packet, I immediately thought it was coming from somewhere. So I called Cliff at the MTC to ask him if they'd been discussing this. And he said they hadn't discussed it once since we passed that previous letter. It wasn't an issue for them then. Then I called Colin from Trail Mix. He said nothing there. Of course, I'm on that committee, so I hadn't seen anything anyway. And he was dumbfounded that we even revisit this. Then I called Andrea to ask if Sand Flats had talked about it, and she was also completely astonished that this is coming back. So this wasn't controversial. A week ago, no one was talking about e-bikes. It was a completely uncontroversial thing until this letter got into the packet that Brian put in and made it a controversy. That this is your controversy. A couple of points that people have said in Brian's letter. He brings up, he talks about ADA. E-bikes are absolutely not devices that are approved for accessibility for handicapped people. That argument has been thrown out in many different places. It also mentions the letter from the Department of the Interior, and then we got that letter added. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the date on that letter was 2019. That was 3 secretaries ago, 2 administrations ago, and the rules have changed. I mean, it clearly states, you can go to the BLM website. They have a page where it talks about BLM final e-bike rule questions and answers, and it puts it down to the individual offices to decide how that goes. And that's what our office has done. And that's the process that they're going through, which is the scoping process that we're talking about right now. As far as Brian said, the NEPA process, the only thing he's alluding to there is in the letter that Trail Mix forwarded, they were talking about a trial period. In that meeting, I agree with Brian. Carrie Nelson from the BLM said they weren't really interested in a trial period. I think it would be pretty easy for the BLM just to discount that part of the letter that talks about a trial period. I personally am not in favor of a trial period. I think it's once you let the cat out of the bag, it's probably going to stay out. And I don't necessarily think that we need a trial period. I think a trial area is extremely important. Let's also talk about the fact that we're not actually closing any trails to e-bike. We're actually opening the most popular trail system in the whole area to e-bikes. This letter's a win for e-biking on many fronts. We're giving them the Brands Trails. The Brands Trails are the most popular trail system. It's got a huge diversity of everything from beginner to very expert trails. It's a big trail system. You can access it from town. You can ride your e-bike out the bike path. Which, by the way, one of the very first things I did when I came onto the commission was get the e-bike or the bike path legalized for e-bikes. For 2021, the bike path was not e-bike legal, and I took that on and I went through the process. I went through Trail Mix. I went through other committees to go through the proper channels to make that happen, and this body voted on approving that again unanimously. If you guys remember that commission at that time, a lot of people were surprised by that, but that path became legal, and it's still legal, which is great. It's worked out. I have seen conflict on it. I ride that path 3 times a week, every week, and I've seen class 2 e-bikes run people off the road. There's one certain individual on there that I see constantly that I've seen very poor behavior on that, but not just from e-bikes. Anyway, I think it's a microcosm of a lot of things. So yeah, we're giving them that most popular trail system in the Moab area. And that's a great place to look at potential conflicts and potential extra potential damage from e-bikes. It's going to be very popular. You're going to see a lot of people out there. You're going to be able to see whether there is these things that we're talking about. Give it a year, check it out. It gives more credence. If everything works out, it'll give us time to adjust to that. And it'll also improve the accessibility of e-bikes on other trails. If it's like, okay, this worked out, we need to change A, B, and C, but otherwise everything's good. Let's now make a few other trail systems e-bike friendly, and we can point at the fact that it worked out at the Brands, and that gives cover to e-bikes. As it is now, you're going to have a lot of traditional mountain bikers or other trail users who are going to feel like they've been jilted in the process. If you make, say, Navajo Rocks, for example, e-bike friendly, and there's encounters, it's like they rammed it down our throats without any studies or without any real recompense in that situation. And lastly is the process. I mean, last year I heard Bill say many times, it says, listen to our boards. Bill sat in his chair and said that to our commission at least 4 or 5 times. This is a case where we did listen to our boards. I wrote that letter. I wrote it as a collaboration from 3 boards that informed this. I took what I think Sandflats, that committee takes their area very seriously. The people on that committee are people like Mark Pope. Mark Pope attended every single MTC meeting that I attended during that time. Molly Taylor's a motorcyclist. Mike Kelso's on the Red Rock 4-wheeler. So there's plenty of motorized representation on that board, and they voted unanimously to not have e-bikes on the Raptor route. So we listened to our boards. This letter is just kind of discarded that. I also gave Brian a call. We had a good conversation. We talked for about half an hour, and I was like, Brian, where is this coming from? And Brian told me, he said, he said, my friends. And I was like, your friends? He's like, my friends I ride with. Your friends you ride with? My friends I ride e-bikes with. This letter is the result of a commissioner listening to his friends instead of our board, which successfully informed a great letter that passed unanimously that was pretty non-controversial. We didn't have any comment at that time. It was a great discussion. We passed it 6-0. Trish wasn't here at the time. And then I didn't hear a peep about that until last week when this letter got on the board. So I think bypassing those groups is not the way to go about it. And I'll say it again. We should listen to our boards. I'll give it up to somebody else.
Mary, go ahead.
I'm extremely fond of e-bikes. I have an e-bike. It's paid for itself with the amount of gas I've saved, riding around town. I just finished a 5-day, e-bike tour through the Netherlands. I rode over 100 miles on their paths and, but they're very different, very, very different from ours. In the Netherlands, the biggest hills were man-created. So it's amazing. I think e-bikes are great, and perhaps at some point, we'd be opening up more trails to e-bikes. But I think once you give the people the opportunity to do something and they do it, and to later on say, oops, we need to pull back, that they're, that they really shouldn't be on these trails or that trail, then it's a lot harder, to go back and take a right of way. You take a right of way, it really upsets people. But if they did, so we have a great place to study and find out how e-bikes affect trails, how they do it. We have a great opportunity. And I think it also went through the appropriate process of not just listening to people you hang out with, but working with the 3 important boards in our community to not do that. I mean, I think Andrea was pretty offensed, found it very, we got the letter from her. I mean, we've heard from other people. It came out of nowhere. There was no discussion. There's no discussion in any of the boards or the groups. And so I find this letter inappropriate and disappointing. That it's not, you advocate for always listening to the travel council. I mean, to give them, as much power as possible. And yet then you disregard 3 other boards. It's and over friends you have, people who ride e-bikes. And so I'm confused as to why this even came up.
I'll get to you guys in a little bit. I want to weigh in just a little bit. I don't think this came out of anywhere, of just nowhere. I sat on the motorized trail committee for the last year. They felt like their voice wasn't heard when this came about. They weren't happy with it. The e-bike representatives weren't happy with it. He even spoke tonight to the fact. And if you really get down to it, Commissioner Martinez has changed this to just an alternative. It allows the BLM to have an option to choose to exclude the ones that do have high user conflict. It doesn't close anything off. It gives them the option to pick some of those. I'm not going to say this came out of nowhere. I'm saying that this has been out there for a long time, and a lot of people feel like that there's almost an elitist system, that if you're not one of the high-end mountain bike riders, that you shouldn't be on these trails. And there are a lot of people that want to have access that don't have the opportunity that we do, that are in good health. And I commend you, Jacques. I mean, I don't know anybody that can ride like you do. I don't. And I consider myself to be in extremely good health myself for the age that I'm at, but I'm nowhere close to you. But we have to become more inclusive of other people in their forms of recreation. And one of the emails that we did get, I thought it was quite interesting. It says mountain bikes share Slick Rock and Porcupine Rim with motorized. That's because motorized allowed and accepted other forms of recreation, because in both of those uses, before there was a mountain bike group in Moab, were open to Jeeps and to motorized. They were used. I used them during high school as soon as I got a driver's license. So to say that the bikers share Slick Rock, really, that's kind of backwards. It's the motorized that's opened up and shared many of the trails around this area. And yet we continually get these letters of closing things down. And so just actually letting us have an alternative here, I think that's commendable. I would agree that the first letter was a little bit too strong, but changing it to allowing for an alternative certainly got me to where I felt a lot more comfortable with it. And with that, Mike, I'll let you go. Trish first, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trish.
I'll be really quick. I am trying to work on my interpersonal skills. I'm doing a lot of kind of Buddhism types of things. So I'm going to sandwich this, Brian. So I do want to thank you for opening up that letter and allowing us to comment. I really appreciate that. And I think that Jacques and I tried to put a lot of time and effort into making comments. So I appreciate you taking the time to look at that. This is not my, not my expertise, not my purview, but basically what was really concerning to me is overriding these volunteers putting in all this time. And when we do something like this, we're basically telling them to, I'll be nice about it, get bent. And that's really discouraging to override those advisory groups. And I'll reiterate, I did watch the meeting. Thank you for sending me the timestamp on that this morning. That was a unanimous vote. Bill, you voted, Mike, you voted unanimously. There was very little controversy that I saw within. I think everybody was very agreeable. I would refute the bulk of the claims in this letter, and I'm not going to get into all that, but I will not be supporting this letter predominantly because it goes against what our advisory boards asked for and a unanimous vote by the commission last November. So again, Brian, I want to thank you for allowing us to make those comments and modifying the letter slightly, but I will not be supporting this.
Mike, go ahead.
Been said, I supported unanimously. I very much did. I supported expansion before. I support expansion now. In Mary's statement, she went to another country and had fun on the e-bike. Would you not want that international traveler to come here and have fun on an e-bike? Like, I would want
But
that.
it's a
I
different
hope
place. It's that they don't have the same issues.
we're better. I'm gonna say that's our trails are better. They should want to come here and go on an e-bike too, which speaks to our 12% down. We should want more commerce, especially tourism commerce, coming to our area, as we already know we're down. But yeah, I've struggled with the decision. Me and Jacques have spoke at length on this. It's not easy, but Alta in the early 90s said I couldn't. I am a skier at heart. I did like snowboarding. Alta said I cannot snowboard there. Still to this day says I cannot snowboard on Alta. For what purpose?
Because
They're still gatekeeping, and we are just gatekeeping.
Melody, go ahead and then we'll let Brian wrap up.
But it's interesting, the Alta's a private entity, so they're.
I know.
Yeah, okay. So we should not be restricting our access to our land. So Alta has every right to do it. They're private entity, but we're public. They're public lands, and I think they need to be open. I'm 100% for encouraging people to come to Moab and 100% for, open public access for all. So I support the letter. It's hard. I talked to Jacques. I think there's a lot of good ideas out there. I understand not wanting everything to be opening the floodgates, but that's what BLM's job is. BLM's job is to do the research, do their environmental assessments, and come back with a plan. And we don't need to tell them that it's only for one route. We need to say, hey, we're for whatever you guys are for. And I think that's important. And so I just want BLM to be able to do their job, and they have the full support of us, especially as being wanting that welcoming message to go out to our community and the people that come here.
Brian, go ahead and then I'll go back to Jacques.
Yeah, so just to answer some of the things that came out here. So first off, we're allowed to respond because we're a cooperating agency. In fact, that's inside of one of the letters that was of the supporting one of the supporting letters was that we could comment at any point because we are a cooperating agency. Second off, the ADA explanation, the ADA explanation does not have to do with the people riding bikes. It has to do with the enforcement of bikes, right? The reasonable modification allowance that is allowed, right? When people will go and see someone riding on an e-bike, you will go, oh, great, do you have your reasonable modification, letter right there? That right there breaks ADA compliance right there, because if same reason that the BLM can't ask why you need this letter, right, is the same reason why law enforcement can't go up to someone and say, why are you riding this e-bike right there? That's where it is. I thought that was pretty clearly stated in the letter right there. It's under enforcement. So that's what we do there. The reason I included the 2019 letter right there, Jacques, is because that was the intent right there of this when the Secretary of the Interior wrote that. He wanted e-bikes to be allowed on all trails that bicycles were there. The BLM took that from that direction, and that's where you see the page that you were looking at right there. So I just wanted to make sure that. The second thing is we did talk, and I think that when we talked, you said that you'd consider an alternative of opening up trails, right? And I did. I think that I went through, I really spent a lot of time to try to help bring you along. I talked to Colin, I talked to Cliff at the Motorized Trail Committee. I talked to quite a few people over this, right? And got a broad range of people. I was also there at the Trail Mix meeting, and it was not a unanimous decision by Trail Mix, right? It was a very split decision on that recommendation letter that they sent. In fact, the recommendation letter that they sent was not the letter that they had originally approved, right? They ended up going ahead and rewriting that letter and then ratifying it after that meeting. Mary, you said that I did this just because of my friends. Well, these are all my friends. The people that are in those meetings, the people that are in MTC, these are my friends. Right? And to say that, did you go ahead and read the meeting minutes? Did you go into that far and look at that before you made claims like that against me? I don't think that you did. And I don't think that that's fair either, right? We mentioned not listening to our boards. We had the chair of one of our board members saying that they supported this, right? Right here, Cliff Kunle saying and giving a great explanation of why he has supported this as a viable alternative. That's what we're asking for here, is a viable alternative. And even when we ask for a viable alternative, the response is no restrictions, right? We don't want you, go away. And I'm tired of that. And that's where I'm going to leave it right there.
All right, Jacques, go ahead. I mean, it's not restrictions. We're opening up more for them. As far as the Trail Mix meeting goes, that letter that Trail Mix ended up putting out was a compromise. There were quite a few people at Trail Mix that didn't want, that they were vocally opposed to any opening up. So I think the compromise that they reached after, there's like 20 people on that board. I think that was a great compromise, and that was what that letter reflected. Anyway, I certainly don't dislike e-bikes. I was literally the first business in town to start renting and selling e-bikes. I did that in 2016. I got a lot of flack from the community for it. But I did it, and it was a foot in the door. As far as that goes, it's technology is crazy. I mean, e-bikes are at the beginning of technology. This letter that was written in 2019, I mean, that was 6 years ago. It's amazing how much the technology's changed. E-bikes have changed a ton. The bikes that we sold at Moab Cyclery are Specialized, and the new e-bike from Specialized, the Levo 4, just landed a couple of weeks ago. That new bike is, the user before each ride can change the setting on it so that it changes it from a class 1 to a class 3 e-bike. That goes 28 miles an hour. That's on the biggest company's e-bike, the flagship e-bike basically that there is. You can do that. Most people don't understand the designation between classes. I mean, you're saying we're closing all these trails off to different users. Why not drive a tank down the single track? Why not open them up to 1,000cc motorcycles? Like, we're drawing the line at class 1 e-bikes, but most people don't even know what class 1 means. I mean, we're having all these issues with e-bikes in town, and we really are having issues. If you don't believe me, talk to the police department. We're seeing the same issues on public land. I saw a Sauron at the Moab Brands Trail a month ago. People were riding them. The guy who takes care of the Anonymous Park, the dirt jumps, he's having a terrible time with e-bikes and Saurons and such, getting on the dirt jumps and ruining them. And he's a volunteer who works at that. This technology is moving fast. I think the original letter gives gives everybody a chance to see how it's going to work out at the Brands Trails and see how it plays out with all of the different technologies. Anyone can just order an e-bike from China that costs $1,500. There's a kid that was riding one to the elementary school. Actually, when I talked to the police chief, I sent him a picture of it. And they sent someone down and asked his parents to come and pick the bike up because he wasn't even legal to ride on this thing. It was an e-motorcycle with a little cheap crank on it and a derailleur to make it look like an e-bike. And it was sold to these poor people as an e-bike online when it's not. You're going to run into a ton of that. As far as saying people are welcome into town, for a few new e-bikers who come to town, you're going to be looking at a lot of, or some anyway, traditional mountain bikers who might not think Moab's a good option for them anymore because they're going to be competing on these trails with people who probably aren't going to know what they're doing and have a machine that's capable of going really fast. The last point I'm going to make, and I'll give it up, whatever is what it is maintenance. We're going to get a lot more people. Whatever you say about e-bikes having the same footprint, they don't. They go faster. They're heavier. Your average e-bike is 53 pounds. They go 20 miles an hour. That undisputedly creates more wear and tear on the trails. That's fine. We're going to need to maintain those trails. If we want to make Grand County a friendly place for people to come and recreate, we're going to have to maintain our trail systems. People aren't going to come here if our trails are hammered. And if you want a good example of that, go out to the Sovereign Trail. That's a trail system that I used to ride a lot. It was made by motorcyclists. Cliff Coons made those trails. I rode them a ton in the early 2000s. They were fantastic. You go out there now, you can't even ride a bike on them. They're, quote, motoed out, they made the trails. That's fine, but there hasn't been the requisite maintenance required to keep those trails in a viable condition. And no one rides them anymore as far as mountain bikers go. They just don't. Most people who come to town in the last 5 years wouldn't even know where the Sovereign Trails are. I hope that changes with the new state park, but if you're looking at opening all these systems to e-bikers, then I would very much like to see a commensurate amount of money being spent through GCAT to take care of them, because it's going to need it. And if you want to keep people come to town to ride world-class trails, then that's going to be a very necessary part of the equation.
Mike, go ahead. Quick. Sur-Ron, what's a Sur-Ron?
A Sur-Ron is basically a small e-motorcycle. They use
e-motorcycle. The trials bikes or the electric trials, right?
Electric. What's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they're like, so they use like mountain bike parts. A lot of them use like mountain bike wheels or mountain bike forks, like the heavier built ones. It might weigh 120 pounds instead of 50 pounds.
That thing doesn't have pedals, right?
The Sur-Ron doesn't have pedals, but if you look online, I'll send you a picture of a couple.
Okay.
There's companies that are basically making those with cheap add-on stuff so they can market them as e-bikes.
Second thing, isn't that what we have GCAT for now? Isn't that what motorized trails is for? Isn't that what GCAT?
What do you mean?
Trail maintenance, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Aren't they out there?
No, they are. And
I want them to be out there.
Yeah,
Keep going.
and they're gonna need to work a lot harder.
We did have that discussion. Me and Jacques had a discussion on, I'd like to see trail expansion also along with this, but it sounds like right now that if there's Sur-Rons on the bike path, I can, as a layman in this term, I can be like motocross bike or dirt bike. And enforcement's the issue there. Jameson needs to take care of it, or city police, or the law enforcement over the area should be taking care of that. And I looked up, we had a previous comment come about, exactly what I was talking about.
Frank, it's sold as an e-bike, it's marketed. If you go online and look at this 12-year-old kid at the elementary school bought one and was riding
Rides a
school on this. Yeah.
But I can, as a layman, I could be like dirt bike.
Right. But it has pedals, cranks on it, and his parents might not know that. There's bad actors out there.
I looked up the report that good person came and actually talked about the IMBA study of 2015, the International Mountain Biking Association. Says that a class 1 e-bike, I looked up the study because I didn't know. The study found that under tested conditions on bike optimized trails, the soil displacement and tread disturbance from a class 1 e mountain bike MTB and traditional mountain bikes were not significantly different.
Those were trails in Oregon in 2015, and e-bike looked extremely different than it does now.
I was looking up these studies as a layman and they,
Yeah. Just
that
to
same
clarify.
study said it was not it's undeterminable on that one. But thank you
All
for
right,
the strong
Trish.
explanation.
Excuse me, are we done? Thank you.
1 minute.
Go ahead.
I guess, just real quick, you know, I teach a graduate class in human dimensions and resource management. And that's basically dealing with conflict in resource management. And then I'll be teaching a different class in just wildlife management, human dimensions. And the reality is land managers have to parse out systems so you can avoid conflict. And there's areas where these, you know, user groups can merge and areas where they don't. And that's just the way it is. Little Creek in the Book Cliffs is one of the most spectacular special places in the world, and it's roadless. There was a road at one time, but there's an old road bed, but it's roadless. And the reality is every place isn't made for every user group. And it is flooded with, you know, mostly backcountry horsemen, hikers, fishermen, because it parses systems out. So public lands are not meant to be cracked open for every user at every avenue. It's just the way it is. Land managers have to parse those out, specific little areas, so that people have those areas where it's not all merged together. And then, like you said, there are places where it is, and that's great. When I hike a Mossaback, which I do a ton, I'm perfectly acceptable that people are roaring past me. That's fine. There's other places that I hike that I don't want it. Right? Little Creek's a good example. So just acknowledge that public lands should not be open to every single user group in every single instance. That's just not the way land management is. And that's not what people want. Backcountry horsemen don't want to have motorized people to contend with because they have horses, right? And horses spook, as you guys know. So just one little thing. I'm going to make a motion. So, or if unless somebody else wants to, we need to move on. You can, Brian. I'm fine. We just need to make a motion.
Brian would like to weigh in.
Great.
Yeah. Just one thing, just since we heard about that, you know, all of this talk, even if, right, we were to would keep restricting e-bikes the way that they are right now, compliance would be impossible. Right? We are not able to provide the compliance necessary right now. I think that the best way to provide compliance, right, is to make sure that we're providing ample recreational opportunities for all the user groups. And yes, that includes those e-motos, right? There needs to be a trail and a place where they can actually go out and go ride, right? We need to actually do some work on the Sovereign Trail. I mean, I love the fact that you brought up the Sovereign Trail because, you know, we spend 100 times more in this county on non-motorized trails than we have on any motorized trails. Right. And so it goes to show that our trails are getting hammered out there, you know, because I mean, believe me, I ride moto. I would love it if somebody went out and we spent some money and fixed up Sovereign Trail. I know that we have a grant that we're trying to apply for it, but
It's a state park, not BLM, so that's a different jurisdiction.
sure, but I would still love to see that trail going. And what else do we have? As a motorcycle rider, what else do we have? We have that and we have two trails basically, and then the Slick Rock. You know, I mean, we don't even have that much. We don't have that many places to ride. And that's where you get the conflict, right? If you have ample opportunities for people to go out, I don't think that you're going to find that. And I also think that you would start to see a self-regulation amongst the user groups, right? If there were sets of trails that were set up for these e-bikes, you would start to see people that are like, hey, what are you doing? You're on a class 3. This is class 1 only right here, right? Sorry, there's some places over here where you can go ride, right? We need to make sure that there's, you know, enough spots. I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move to approve the letter for e-bikes right here to send to David Powell's.
Motion by Commissioner Martinez.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Seconded by Commissioner McCurdy. Now, I would like to say that maybe you add to that it say the Grand County Commission Chair rather than just Grand County Commissioner.
Sure. Yeah.
So
In that motion, did it approval letter BLM regarding class 1 e-bike use? That's the
motion.
Motion, okay.
Motion by Commissioner Martinez again, seconded by Commissioner McCurdy. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes with Commissioner Hedin, Commissioner Hadler, and Commissioner McGann against. We will move on to the approval of the letter to the BLM for the proposed communications tower on Black Ridge. Pull that one up.
The Black Ridge is a back road that goes all the way to LaSalle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Black Ridge.
It's I thought we were looking for a ridge, not the road.
Well, it's a little point that comes off of Black Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's got my name on it for just as far as presentation, so I'll just give a real brief. This was a request to see if we would be interested in supporting San Juan County in their efforts for a cell tower that would help people in both their county and our county. And so I know that Commissioner McCandless has worked on this quite a bit, and I have as well, and discussed this at length with Mac McDonald at UAC, as well as Sylvia Stubbs and Commissioner Lori Mon. So I know Melody started off. Mike, I'll let her start and go to you.
I just want to go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to move to approve the letter of support to BLM for proposed communications tower on Black Ridge with the wording changed to Grand County supports the proposal for a communication towers on Black Ridge, and just delete the 250-foot tall section.
Excuse me? I didn't hear the number.
I just wanted to delete the 250-foot tall section. So Grand County supports the proposal for a communication towers on Black Ridge. And then the rest of the letter would say the same. That's my motion, is to accept that letter.
Get rid of
The
the
second line as well.
Oh, and yeah, and
And
the
then you want to do the proposal
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah.
Change,
The
take away
250,
where.
just take those out and just approve a communications tower.
Motion by Commissioner McCandless, seconded by Commissioner McCurdy. Discussion. I'm not sure who started, but I think it was Mike. I'll let him speak.
This isn't it.
Go to Trish.
You guys are more informed on this. This is to clear up dead zones, the arena,
Right.
Grand Village, San Juan, or
There's
clear to
a
Blue Hill.
future tower out in Spanish Valley that'll come online eventually that'll help with that also. But
Okay.
This is more for communication all the way down between Monticello and I guess what
Kind of a
is it?
safety aspect. That's a win too, because it's
Yes.
rough.
Trish, go ahead.
Yeah, my understanding, but from Mac at the CCP was that it was mostly for LaSalle.
Okay.
Yeah, that
It's
it would
rough up
really
there,
help
too.
it in that area. And thank you, Melody, for changing that verbiage, because I do think, they, in the BLM scoping, it stated that 150-foot tower would basically provide functionally the same coverage, and you wouldn't need a light and the light pollution that comes with that. I know that the Ulam just got dark skies designation, and I think it's something to think about. And I looked it up a little bit and kind of the effects, me and wildlife. The effects on wildlife, birds, specifically migrating birds, are actually really attracted to that light. And so it's really hard, a lot of lethality that comes with that. So I think if they could reduce that tower and have the same functionality and not have to have that ever flashing red light, I think it would be great. And so hopefully they'll consider that in that scope, that they've provided that. So thank you for changing that verbiage. I appreciate it.
Mary, go ahead.
That's all I was gonna say was thank you for changing that verbiage. It makes a big piece of help for it, because I'm excited about, I think it's important for safety reasons and just convenience for the people that live in LaSalle, because that community is growing quite a bit. And so I'm excited about a tower, but I wasn't excited about 250. But 150, I'm really excited. So thank you.
Well, and I'll mention also that the verbiage change doesn't tell them what height of the tower specifically.
I could call back and tell them, personally.
If you let me finish, I'll explain further, but I don't want to tell San Juan County what to do with their cell tower. I want to support them. And when they work through this, if they get enough comments to change it, then that's up to them. But this is one of those decisions that I don't believe it's Grand County's responsibility to tell another county what they should be or shouldn't be doing, but to support them in their efforts to provide a service that many people out there do not have currently. So, Jacques, I know you had further.
No, I'm good. I decided not to speak.
Anybody else? If not, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the cell tower as written. Motion passes unanimously.
So the Sal are gonna be stoked.
Yeah, Sal for sure. All right, so let's see, that means we are moving into a discussion item. And I'm questioning, do we want to continue the discussion on the municipal and the county zoning amendments? HB 256, I'm not even sure who was bringing that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. And so HB 256 was one that we were watching during the legislation. We talked about a lot during our legislative meetings with Stephen and you and Jacques. And it did go through, and because I'm new to this, I'm not exactly sure how our county handles how we regulate short-term rentals. But what this bill did do is it clarified that the municipality or county that regulates short-term rentals may use a listing or offering on a short-term rental website like VRBO or Airbnb as evidence that short-term rental took place. So I am interested to see how we can, it doesn't, as I went through the bill, I didn't see that we needed to create a resolution or an ordinance. It did speak to the fact that if we already have an ordinance in place, and that's where this information that's in the packet came from. So it's our land use code, and it's also an ordinance that was done that repealing Title V, which has to do with business license. So I'm not sure if we're actually going to need to create an ordinance so that we can direct this, or if we can just direct, and if that's the way that we want to go. I was hoping to have a few more people in the discussion. We have Chrissy here. Thank you. She's going to be representing Ms. Black, our code enforcement. But and I've also heard we had some software from gov.os that was supposed to help find illegal nightly rentals, but that was what I was curious about, if that was effective and if we want to, anyways, how we want to move forward with this ordinance. It goes into a lot of our.
Okay, and my apologies because it didn't state who was presenting this. I was a little bit in the dark on it and I didn't realize that's what you were coming up for. So thank you for coming up. I know Mike has some questions or input, and then we'll go maybe see Ms. Hopkins.
Go ahead.
So just some background a little bit. Title V does already speak largely to everything that's in here. Between Title V and the OAO overlay, the county is way ahead on this and has been for years. To GovOS's point, I have mixed reviews from the planning staff on how they feel about it. I know I found out today that I believe the county spends $20,000 roughly on the GovOS software every year. Within that, we do have, it does offer a lot of data as far as enforcement goes. I think that getting these businesses in compliance is 100% worth that fund. Especially because it gets, the data itself, I think, is worth a lot. Brandon went through this with me. It looks like we have a lot of businesses that are within the OAO but do not have business licenses, and those are being addressed currently. We're sending out letters to those businesses. We have a number that do not have business licenses and are not within the OAO. So those would be something that we would work with the county attorney's office on cease and desist letters and trying to get those to compliance. And this would be sort of, an ongoing, maybe the first year, it's all about compliance. And then we go really hard on actually enforcing all of these, what this allows us to enforce.
That was my question along this. This just broadens our help along with gov.os to see it on Airbnb and then
it's just
no fee structure.
Tool
Okay.
that we would use when going to court. Before we've been pretty limited on how we could enforce. It required, basically making a purchase, having that receipt, going there and then taking that information to court. Now we have just, one more tool.
We could see him listing it.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Then real quick, I want to chime in, Trish, and I'll let you, Brandon, by Miss Brandon, you mean Mr. Black?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I wasn't sure of his first name. And then the second thing, I pushed for this fairly hard when we pushed this last year. And multiple times I would be contacted by GovOS employees wanting to know why we weren't utilizing it like we should. So we never really had a staff member who sank their teeth into this and utilized it. And I can't remember their names. One was Anna, the other two gentlemen that contacted me. I'd have to go back and try and research, but they were like, when are we gonna get this moving? So I think if we could.
I 100% agree with you. I think that staff education and getting them on board with what this actually could do is.
Especially
half the battle.
with the new law that we have now,
I
the
100%
state
agree.
statute would help. And so Trish, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm excited about it. I think, like you said, it will give us one more tool. Kind of just give a quick story. The first house I built here, I put it on VRBO. This was a long time ago. I don't know, 18, 20 years ago, and immediately got a letter from the county. I mean, we're talking like within days. And it was like, hey, did you know? And at that time I could have actually applied for an overnight accommodation. You can either do this or this. You have to be over 30 days or you, and it was like, oh, I didn't even know, right? I was just like going about my, so I think it's feasible that people just don't even know. So I think it's a great tool to push out, and you'll have either people that'll turn it into a long-term rental. I mean, that's what I eventually did. I turned it into a long-term rental, right? And so we may pull some long-term rentals out of it. So I think it can be a really great thing.
All right, Brian, go ahead and then Mike.
And can you walk me through the process? So how are we catching people now? Just what's the whole process look like?
So code compliance is complaint driven and always has been from the commission. So if you guys would like to change that, we're always open to, but right now we get a complaint, it's investigated. And then it is sent to the county. It is either, usually we always seek voluntary compliance first. The mechanism for that is the land use code or Title I. And then we follow those both outlined. Our process is outlined in both of those documents. It's a letter. If we can't get voluntary compliance, it goes to the county attorney's office. Then it starts our process where we send our own cease and desist, and then we can file a complaint if necessary.
And so on that right there, so you would still need a complaint then from a neighbor before, and that's why I was asking right now. So I'm just trying to figure out what we would want to change so that instead of it having to be a neighbor that complains, it's, hey, look, this is listed up on VRBO and for Airbnb.
Yeah, and that is at the direction of the commission. Yeah, so if you guys wanted to change that, and I think that the code compliance, I know the attorney's office is on board. Because I think this is a huge problem for the county.
So Mike, go ahead, and then John.
I see this as a benefit. I literally just voted to raise our TRT taxes. If you are doing it not under a business license, if you're renting what is now in the zone or is currently in the zone and you don't have a business license, you are not properly putting in and paying your TRT tax revenue. And with voluntary compliance, I could actually see a benefit there, not to that exact homeowner, but.
Well, and we also, just to clarify, we do report to the tax commission when we have evidence that that's the first thing we do. I should have said that first, sorry. That's the first thing that Brandon does. And then we go through our own process, but we do report to them quite regularly for anything that's happening that should be taxed.
Go ahead, Melanie.
I did have a comment from another commissioner while I was down in St. George, and they were telling me, because I was talking about this legislation, and they said that that VRBO and Airbnb does collect TRT taxes and they do submit it. So we are getting the TRT taxes, but that's not ultimately, I mean, that's great when we want to collect the taxes. We want to make sure that they have a business license and they're doing everything correctly. But if they're not in the right zoning, then they haven't been then they need to be they need to be long-term rental, and that's more my my care. And so I don't know if we would, I mean, obviously we can't vote, it's a discussion item. And I guess we would have to vote to be able to, yeah, so next agenda, I would put it on there. I just didn't want to put it on there without just finding out some back information and talking to all of you.
Go ahead, Trish.
This is more of a question. Chris Baird brought this up a bajillion years ago, that the TRT that's collected, tell me if you guys remember this, I can't remember if Mike and Bill. The TRT that was collected actually went to the owner. So if an owner was living in Vail, like we weren't actually, do you remember that?
I remember that conversation.
So, and anyways, it's kind of a weird aside that the monies weren't actually coming to the county that the rental was in. It was going to wherever the owner was, which was really jacked up. And I can't remember if that was ever resolved. I'll try to look into that a little bit, but it was a weird aside.
You might have had a tax withholding account that you're supposed to turn over those funds to the state, but Utah can't tax for the benefit of a third party county.
It's a weird, I'm telling you, it was weird. And I can't remember if it ended in, yeah, so I'll see if I can do a little research.
One thing on this discussion, I've beaten this horse dead as many times. Every time compliance comes up, I think I've said the exact same thing every single time. We're more than happy to get enforcement from the county attorney's office. We literally prosecute things. That's what we're here for. But without taking the restrictions off and making it anything less than complaint driven. This is something that's really hard to manage as complaint driven, because either your next door neighbor is really popular with people from out of state, or they're doing a nightly rental, and who's gonna be like, I think they're not popular. So if you guys ease up on that or make that change, I think that could be a substantial benefit.
It sounds like that's where Melody wants to go anyway, and then I believe Mary was next and then Mike.
So we're talking about changing it, that it's all things do not have to be
Complaint, yeah, I'm assuming.
I like that. And just for some background, believe it or not, it was really hard to get the commission. Quite a few commissions for, I think it was my first commission, to even agree to hire a code enforcer. It was a big deal, and it was a big deal to and you're gonna come and tell me how I have to keep my yard and da. So I think that was a compromise at the time to get the commission, okay, well, let's make a, complaint or, so that's just the background. And so I think it would be much smarter to have it where if somebody's violating an ordinance, that we can move on it, that we don't have to wait for somebody whine, so that I just wanted that to, explain why that happened at the beginning. Thanks.
I think for the commission, one thing, and I know you guys are new to this, I think if you guys want to highlight areas where you guys want to have it not be complaint driven, that actually probably would help Mr. Black have just not like a all you can eat buffet, and instead focus on, look, really what's really important to us is overnight. Overnight where you're billing and charging something versus camping versus dark skies versus whatever topics. So I think if you guys have that maybe on your next agenda and just narrow it to one or two themes that you guys think that you guys have some consensus on, I think that'd be helpful.
Can I ask you a quick question, Steve?
You're okay. All I was gonna say is, let's do that. And McCandless,
So
Commissioner McCandless.
what you're saying is direct the code enforcer on what we want us to focus, but not so much to put it in the ordinance that we just focus on these and that everything else has to be complaint driven. What
I
got a little confused.
Sure. What I think would be easier is if you took the certain topics, like overnight accommodations that they're billing for, and say, we don't want that to be complaint driven. We want Mr. Black to go do that on his own. By that virtue, that will make it so that they'll get complaints in on other topics. They'll process those just like normal. But then when he has extra time, he can focus on those other items that are not mandated by the complaints. One thing that I'm saying as well is if there are other items that there's consensus, and we've talked with the commission, Commissioner Hadid and I have always talked with the commission, well, this one and the past one, and there's always some sticking points like camping. I know camping is a really difficult one. So if you can say, look, camping, somebody parking an RV in somebody's front yard, maybe that remains complaint driven. But you know, dark sky, like these are the things that we've continuously butted up against, and we haven't made progress on getting that. So I think if you make certain topics able to be non-complaint driven.
You want it scattered, or do you want it to be more like the ordinance says it doesn't have to be?
It's our
complaint driven, but we give direction to the department on what we want to focus on.
It's an,
What you're saying?
yeah, it's an internal policy.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be an ordinance. This would just be the direction that the commission would like code compliance to go.
But we need to change the ordinance to take away the direction.
No, we just.
No, there's no ordinance. It's just- You, so right now, the code compliance enforces the ordinances, but only based on complaints. This would allow them to go seek the complaints without having somebody complained, you know, without having any.
And that's in the ordinance, right?
No, that is just how the commission has directed
Okay.
compliant
Thank
to,
you.
like, you know, how they've directed them to is to investigate.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah.
I was, see what the circle I was going in.
I did.
Yeah, and so I know I brought up the camping ordinance a while ago, and I'm just kind of tabled it because we have a lot of other things going on, so I haven't forgotten about it, but I also like, it's kind of camping season and we have lots of other things going on, and I'd like to bring that discussion back in, but maybe at a different time. And so that's not going to be, that'll stay as complaint driven. And I think it's not an ordinance, but it's just direction that has been given in the past. And I don't want to change that. I also watched, recently, right before I became a commissioner, you guys talked about dark skies as well. And I'm just fine for that to be complaint driven unless anyone else wants to discuss that. That's not dear to my heart, but this, so I think complaint driven on that one is fantastic, but I would like to talk about this one. And if there's any other that people know of, but I just know that with this law and also with the, gov.os, the information we have, that we should definitely, I would like to, that one and then just to direct that particular piece. If there's another piece that you guys think that we could direct to, then let me know, because I don't know, but
The only other thing I could think of is safety and health. Because, some.
that's already included on the camping ordinance, that's included as for him to go ahead, and if it's a health issue, they can go ahead and do it, but it's not a complaint driven when it's health. So yeah, that's already,
I wanted to make sure.
addressed.
Yeah, and those would also be addressed like with citations from.
So we're talking like a la carte complaint driven or not, right? That's legit or?
Well, I mean, I'll take whatever the commission thinks, or.
I mean, it sounds.
It's your guys' management of the county. If you guys want to do it that way, that's what you can do.
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just trying to get a.
From my position, I push for,
sure, I know
we have laws in the books. There's no reason we shouldn't enforce them. And we've got.
As far as direction goes, it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page as regarding this OAO situation. I mean, can this conversation serve as direction?
I think if it's a policy decision, yeah, I mean, you've got your administrator here, he's been listening to everything that you guys have been saying, and so that's something that.
I mean, it literally sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, if we can skip the discussion next meeting, it's fine with me. And the law goes into effect tomorrow.
Right.
This particular piece, but I mean, it's not that you can have already done it with the other.
Yes, I'd be completely fine if that were the case.
I don't know anybody that's against it, so nobody's really raised any.
Don't have to.
At tomorrow's staff meeting, I will say, do this, and then we're done.
And so one thing to remember, one thing to remember on this is you all have to remember each other's comments on this, because what's gonna happen inevitably is somebody that has a nice overnight accommodation that isn't licensed is gonna come to you and say, darn it, Commissioner Blank, I helped do whatever, or this is where they're gonna come out of the woodwork and be upset. And this is one of the things, when we start doing it without the complaints, there's the perception that it could open up to bias. And so that's why we want Mr. Black to apply it evenly across the board. And so just know when you get the phone call from somebody saying that, code enforcement this is the conversation to remember because it's not fair for them not to be supported going down the road. So I'm excited for some guidance on this. I'm excited for him. I'm happy to prosecute these issues. This is just one thing to remember, that you'll get the phone call at somebody being upset.
Appreciate the caveat. Okay, so. Okay, I was ready to move on to the next one.
Okay. Voluntary compliance is your first step, right? That's fine.
Voluntary, well.
Voluntary compliance is still the first step, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
We're always gonna look for voluntary compliance because we get a lot more bang for our buck. I think the majority, 99% are voluntary compliance. Because people, for the most part, I think your good intentioned actors are the majority of people in the community. They get notice that they're in compliance and then they want to fix it. So that's good.
Process is.
Hey, Melanie.
That was my question. So we
Okay.
can't go outside of what you guys have already approved as far as, our steps we have to take. So that won't change.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a discussion on purchase of real property, and I'm just curious why it doesn't show on the agenda that was printed out who presented these. Maybe in the future we can get that on there.
You were on agenda review too.
Okay. All right, so what have we got for the purchase of real property?
I don't know if any commissioner wants to speak to this item number 15. There's nobody that wants to speak to the purchase of real property, then
we're done and
then we would be done.
Well, I guess my question is, it will become an action item?
Eventually, anytime that the county wants to finalize a purchase, it is obligated for it to eventually come into the public sphere.
Yeah, I didn't think that I put that on as a discussion item. I just wanted to make sure that it will eventually be an action item that we
Yes.
can discuss.
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect.
Very good. All right, then I need a motion to go into closed session. Melody.
I'll make a motion for us to go into closed session.
Motion by
Commissioner.
Yeah.
For the pending imminent litigation,
Pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
Commissioner McCandless motion, seconded by Commissioner McCurdy. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We're